your bollocks and twist. Settle down, they'll take a fit. You drank a demon straight from hell. They almost nearly won as well. You wiped the floor with victory. They puked until you fell asleep. Like it was the Banshees, well, these boots will never feel like jail. You crawl into an empty boat. Fought a go from Mexico. Curtis came and so did you. From the ashes, journey blue, smelling like a salty dog. Back from hell where you belong.
All right, guys, welcome back to Cruising with Steak. We just interviewed the one and only Joshua Cutchin, and
Yes,
it
we did.
was pretty freaking awesome. James, you like that? It was a good show.
I had a great time. I didn't know what to expect at first. Talking about fairies and fairy lore.
Fairy
I mean,
folklore.
I had a lot of horrible jokes running through my head, but at the same time, I learned a lot, and I think we vibed really good with him, man. It was a lot of fun. I can't wait to talk to him again for sure.
All right.
Did you keep it together, James?
I did, and
You did. James was very good.
I love fairy lore. This sounds
Bravo.
wonderful.
It was very interesting.
So you guys are hearing a lot of voices.
Mente.
If you want to skip,
we got Hollywood
if you,
Squares up in this.
if you want to
bitch,
skip past this intro, I'll have the time code in the description if you just want to hear Josh Cutchin. But in this intro, we have Cliff Wall. Say hi, Cliff.
Hello.
There
Hi.
you go, okay.
Season's greeting.
Season's greetings. We have the one and only Nish.
Hello, hello.
We have that guy,
Sup?
Jerry Cthulhu,
Greetings.
Suzanne Potter,
Hello.
Liberal Mike,
How's it going, everybody?
and Falked, because he can't spell his last name or his name.
Oh, I did that, didn't I?
Yeah, you typoed your name.
Oh, sorry. Fail kid.
At least
kid.
you're better failed. don't even have mine in there. How do I do it?
It's in there.
You just
Oh,
have
okay.
your
It comes and
camera
goes.
on.
It's
You
like a
have to
regressive spelling error.
You have to
Strange.
take the tape off of your camera, and then we would see.
It's a Mandela effect. Spelled.
It's Mandela effect.
It's always been that spelled that way.
In this reality, it's always been that way. Failed.
It's Berenstain or Falked.
Falked.
I falked it up.
Oh, I skipped James. We obviously have James here, though. James Cruz.
Fuck y'all.
He's obviously here. He's stuck in this
Grim
show.
steak.
Yeah, Grim Steak.
That's a long clip.
Yeah, James is
Oh,
here
yes.
with
James
his
is
excessively
here.
long sound bites.
The extended version.
Oh,
So
man.
fairies, like fairy godmother fairies, or like
Like fairy people.
Yes, like
Well,
the Fae folk.
Like
You know,
Stackhouse.
It was cool because it's more. I was
Exactly.
asking him, I'm like, what are people seeing? And it's more in the line of like orbs. I mean, that.
Well,
that
that's just
gets-
one way that they see him. Yeah.
one way that that's kind of my
Dude,
vision.
but honestly,
of
though,
what I would want to see. Yeah, but.
Yeah, like fairy lore. It sounds just like UFO abductions or a lot of the
Yeah.
phenomenon that people report these days with that kind of stuff. Like Bigfoot, you could tie fairy lore into pretty much anything. It's pretty interesting. Pretty
It's
interesting
very
stuff. But yeah, he just got back from a trip to Ireland and he was researching all that stuff. It was pretty good.
Has he checked out the little people in North Carolina?
I'm not sure.
Or wait, no, not North Carolina. Yeah, no, there's some in North Carolina. Where's that?
The Cherokees. It's
Yeah, the Cherokees in the Tennessee.
Cashiers. It's in Cashiers, North Carolina. That lady.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, that's right.
Sky Ships Over Cashiers is her.
Oh, that's right. That's
Is
really
there a
cool.
documentary on that?
I don't know.
I thought there was.
It's possible.
She's written a few books about underground bases. I forget her name. Mary, I think something or other.
So did Joshua get into the exchange between Fey folk and like our reality? The idea of something that they offer you and then that pulls you in or something.
Yeah, you offer them. He did talk about offerings. Like he would bring food to these places, and he on his trip over there, he always would gather bread. And when he went to these places, he would leave fucking bread and shit, dude.
That's what they like.
Yeah. And milk also.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, milk.
So what I've heard, actually, I wish I would have heard about this before I got back, and I didn't because I wasn't engaged with you guys at this point. But I just came back from Ireland actually 2 weeks ago.
Wow! Oh man,
it was in Cork.
Yeah, we're engaged.
Yeah, so,
he got a really nice ring for all of us.
Nice. It's in the mail.
What I've heard about is not just that you leave stuff for the Fey folk, but also that the Fey folk will offer you things, and that's one way that they pull you into their their
trap.
Yeah, you're not supposed to eat the food, right?
Yeah.
The forbidden fruit.
Yeah, you tell them thanks, but no thanks.
I've written 2 books. One of them is exactly about that. It's called Feast of something or other.
Oh yeah, a Trojan Feast.
Trojan Feast. Yeah. It's all about getting offered food and food surrounding encounters.
That's how you get thrown in the oven like Hansel and Gretel.
Yeah, his other one was a Brimstone Deceit, where it dealt with just like how people smell smells and everything, like just sulfur.
That was interesting. Yeah, that's a really cool one. I heard
he's a pretty cool dude. He had a good time.
There's a lot. Smell that smell.
Oh, I can't wait.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Right on. Let's get into some segments here, so we don't do a 2-hour intro. Well, where are we going to start it off with? We're starting it off good. Awesome. Who's up?
Share a memory that's unique to you.
Not it.
A memory worth retelling.
Not it.
And don't be afraid of being judged, cause cruising with state is a designated safe space.
Who wants to share a nice story? Anybody got a cool story to share with us? Not everyone at once.
No, come on. There's like 8 people in this bitch.
I know, and we're all talkers.
Yeah. What the
Come on, who's got a good memory to share? Just anything makes you happy that you think back on.
Well, on the fairy thing, I have something.
Ooh, let's hear it.
I grew up in my stepdad's house was Irish from County Meath, and so I grew up with leaving the food for the Fae and the milk for the Fae. And I had this scary old grandmother, Celeste Macaulay. And so that was something that was part of my early, program, was to always feed the wee ones. She called them the wee ones. She didn't say fairy. And she said if we didn't feed them, it was only on seemed like the high holidays, when we had like a family feast or something, which is funny with the woman who came from a Depression era. Our family feast was kind of measly, pale, unspicy Irish food. Anyway, so it was a big deal. And she said that if we didn't do that they would come for the kids. So I grew up with that as a program.
Wow.
It was so scary. I loved them. Of course, I always wanted to go put out the bread and the milk and honey also. Huh. And then as I got older, I started offering like candy, like M&Ms and stuff. I was getting creative.
Did you ever have them? Did you ever, like, after you left it, they were gone? Like, was it ever taken? How's this work, Nish?
Well, because it wasn't on the inside window of the house. It was outside on the kind of veranda porch. So I suspect they were gone. And so there are many reasons. I mean, I guess a skeptic could say maybe a raccoon or a cat or something. But oftentimes, like the milk for sure was always gone. So, and sometimes the bread just depends. It seems like my candy always stayed though.
Fairies maybe didn't like the sugars. It's possible.
It's easy to blame it on a raccoon or a cat, but Who says that
You
it's
don't
not
want
a
to eat GMOs.
Yeah.
Well, I personally thought it was the Fae for sure, and I certainly,
of course.
I think that they're like interdimensional type. I think they're a race, and I think also possibly that maybe some of what people consider aliens now are, that's not on the experience. So I still follow these traditions. I still leave out, but I'm a nature. You all know this. I mean, I have a farm and live really close to the earth. So I still follow those rules. I still think that the nature spirits are they're part of my world, at least. Very cool. That's why I said my early programming, because I did get that from an Irish granny.
I wish I had gotten that.
Yeah, definitely.
That's where they got the idea to give Santa Claus milk and cookies.
Oh, probably.
That's as a serious note.
No, it's very possible.
Yeah, very
ripped it off of that folklore and used it for commercial.
Well, Christmas is all ripped off of the pagan solstice celebration anyway, so it's like, yeah, why not just take every single culture that you can and merge it all into.
The whole character of Santa Claus has that kind of thread running throughout the entire tradition of people being, or the guy being able to do unexpected things, traverse barriers that others aren't able to traverse, travel great distances, get access, know things that other people do not, have access to. So,
you've been naughty or nice. Yeah, he knows.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah.
I think the Christianized version of Santa, though, is
Saint Nicholas. Saint Nicholas.
Right, but I think before that happened, it was an evil character, like Krampus.
Yeah.
Get you.
Or the Grinch.
The German, yeah.
Isn't there a whole bunch of other cultures that they're, what was it, the German one, I think?
The Germans.
The German one is definitely Krampus.
A lot of cultures center around children being scared of being taken.
Right.
There's a bunch of other ones I remember hearing.
Hard just to make them behave.
In Catalan, don't they have like the Yuletide log is actually something to do with like poo, and they celebrate something with poops, and there's all kinds of poop jokes in Catalan. Or
that's Mr. Hanky, isn't it?
Yeah, that sounds like Mr. Hanky the Christmas poo. That's exactly what it sounds like.
Log.
I don't know enough about Catalan, so I'm gonna believe you.
Took South Park and went with it.
I got a unique memory to me. It's pretty brief. It's
all right, let's hear it.
It's a certified cruising with steak celebrity encounter with Cliff Wall. I met Jack Black when I was in a sophomore in high school. Jack Black of Tenacious D fame.
Cool.
So me and my friend just went to their concert in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and they were out by their tour bus afterwards and signing things. So he signed a shirt that I had, and there was like a bong on the shirt and things. So
Do you still have the shirt?
I don't even know where it is anymore.
Oh man!
But he signed the shirt, and I go, "Can you sign the shirt and my ticket?" And he looked at me and he goes, "No."
What a dick.
And then he waited a couple seconds for like a comedic pause, and he goes, "Yeah, sure, I'll do it. I'm Jack Black."
That's cool.
Nice.
Here's another certified Cliff Wall celebrity
encounter. Here you go.
My sister met Mario Lopez of Saved by the Bell fame.
Oh man.
He was AC Slater in Saved by the Bell.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But there's a really funny story, and we always laugh about it. And she was working at Subway, and he was doing some like B type movie near a town where we live, and I don't remember what it was called, but he came into Subway and he was like practicing a line on my sister, and he was practicing like a voice that he was going to do in the movie, and she says she remembers him getting on his tiptoes. And this is what he said, on his tiptoes, and he put his hands behind his back and said, "I would like a meatball sandwich." And recently I thought about this, and I just kind of brought it up to my sister, and I go, remember when you met Mario Lopez? And she goes, I was just today talking about that with my, coworker or something. So
Synchro.
Mario
I have to tell you,
Synchro.
the next time I go into Subway, that's how I'm ordering.
Hands behind his back and got on his tiptoes and I would like a meatball sandwich.
You have to have video proof, though. Have somebody videotape you because we want to see that.
I will have an accomplice for video.
All right.
Good job.
Man,
I'll do that too. I'll go to Subway tomorrow.
I
would like a meatball sandwich.
Oh, so I have a little story. I think you guys all know this. It's holiday themed. I played. I was Jesus in my 6th grade play, and I had a solo.
Awesome.
Wow.
I had to sing in front of 3,000 people.
Jesus. That's awesome, Suzanne.
I was the Lord.
So what production was this?
It was the
Crucifixion.
Oh my gosh! No, it was.
Just Christmas.
Oh, it was the silver and gold, our treasure. When given, I'm going to sing this whole song now. I can't think of what it was when he met the guy on the road, and people didn't want to help him, but somebody helped him. One person helped him, and I don't know. That's what I remember. I can't figure what the title is.
Like the Good Samaritan story?
Yeah, that's what it was. Thank you.
But that wasn't Jesus. That was somebody else, though.
Paul?
I don't know. Maybe it wasn't the Good Samaritan. It was from Jerusalem to Jericho.
On the road again.
I think that was the Blues Brothers tour.
What was it? The roads were
Either that or the Eagles. It was the Eagles' final tour, I think.
The roads were long and dark. There's more strangers on the way than animals in the ark. It's long and dark from Jerusalem to Jericho. I don't know. that was the chorus. Not my solo, but I can't remember what the hell they sang.
Is that an E flat?
I don't know. It's way flat.
No.
It's super flat.
Bring it flat and minor. I love it.
That's okay. I'm not embarrassed.
Wait, super flat? Like, was there a character named Mick Forgiven in the show?
No, he's talking about my singing.
Oh,
I'm yeah.
The key signature of the song.
I don't know. E flat. Yeah.
I thought it was about your chest.
Just bad.
On that note,
Yes.
I'm like, holy fuck! I want to bust down a door and start eating your meat mountain.
That's one thing I'm not flat.
I know.
Grab a bite to eat while you're listening to this. It's good.
Yeah, get some burgers. Maybe a nice spread.
Yeah, nice spread. Maybe some ribs.
Some ribs.
Put a bust down your door.
Health/food segment. The most health-conscious podcast all along the platter.
That's the best part, Cliff. Totally the best.
Health-conscious podcast all along the platter.
Fucking meat mountains.
I'm like, holy fuck! I want to bust down a door and start eating your meat mountain.
I was at Arby's today, actually, and I was filling up a drink, and right above the fountain, they actually had an advertisement for the Meat Mountain.
Shut the fuck up.
You were at the Meat Mountain Fountain.
The Meat Mountain Fountain.
I'm like, dude, it looks so good.
So does anybody have any health or food news?
It sounds like a nickname for a porn star.
Oh,
Meat Mountain?
No.
Yes, it does.
Ron Jeremy's little brother.
This is Cliff Wall. Can I do one?
Yeah, let's hear what you got, Cliff Wall.
Okay, this is sort of related to health. Okay, I have to preface it a little bit. It might have to do with plant health.
Okay.
So, plant health. Okay, there's a little bit more to it though. So I went to a thrift store recently, and at the thrift store I picked up a notebook, and inside the notebook I thought it was blank, but there was some writing in it, and it looks like an old lady was writing some tips on how, for plant health. Okay, so I'm prefacing it with plant health. It was a thrift store notebook I found. There was writing in it, and if you had the camera, you'd see there's some writing here. Again, it has to do with plant health. So this is pretty funny. This is what she wrote. It's a plant health tip. You guys ready?
Ready.
Okay. So to prevent, this is kind of funny. To prevent a cat from having a love affair with your houseplants, add used Maxwell House grounds to potting soil. Kitty will be turned off by nasty scent and coffee grounds filled in nutrients also for the plants.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just
nutrition.
funny that she wrote to prevent your cat from having a love affair with your house.
Love affair.
That's awesome. I like her style.
Yeah, it's really good.
You can also put tinfoil around your plant. Will keep the cats out of there too.
You know, they should.
It's just that she's poetic like that. The whole love affair thing.
Yeah.
Are there any tips? Are there any tips for having an 8-week-old kitten stop shitting in the middle of the bedroom floor in the middle of the night?
Oh. Lock it in the bathroom with the litter box.
Okay,
Yeah.
I can see that.
That's my tip.
Cat diapers.
Cat diapers.
For some reason, I mean, did you abuse it?
No. I was just gonna wrap her in duct tape.
Oh, don't duct tape a cat. That's unacceptable.
Do you ever tie a sock? You ever tie a sock around their waist, dude? They just become immobile.
Well, that's like those vests that they make for the cats. That like you put this vest around them and they just like fall to the side and just don't move.
It's crazy, dude.
Dude,
When I have
that's
to take
messed
my
up.
cats somewhere, I put them in a pillowcase.
And throw them over your shoulder.
What do you got there?
So many things running through my
Chuck
head
them off a
on that,
bridge.
Jerry.
You put a cat in a pillowcase, and the cat does not.
We're not gonna throw the cats off.
Docile, like they stop moving.
Bag full
Yeah,
of pussy.
they do.
Wow.
It's not
My
cruel.
cats are bigger than my toy chihuahua, and every time we put a sweater on her, she just stands there and won't move. She gets she's
they're
like, fuck you. What are you doing?
About 2 months ago, we got adopted by a cat that was pregnant, and he popped about a week and a half after we adopted her. After she, and we ended up adopting out most of the cats. We still have 2 left, and I have this thing where I really like human names on animals. I think they're hilarious.
Oh yeah, me too.
So the kittens were named Carl and
Dude, my cat's name is Carl.
Synchro.
No kidding.
Yes.
Good
We always say, is that Carl when we hear the meowing in the background?
Carl's always bitching.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, in the
That's a great
background.
name for an animal.
And
And my ex-husband's name is Keith. Oh my gosh.
Whoa!
So then we had
female cat Suzanne.
We had 2 females that were troublemakers, and we called them Thelma and Louise.
My mom's name is Thelma. Oh my god!
I do name it Thelma.
Are you serious?
Yeah,
Thelma's
I'm
a
serious.
great name.
Get out of here! No, come on.
My mother's name is Thelma.
There's a city in Alberta called Lake Louise.
Oh my god!
You know, you joke about Lake Louise, but I have a I guess it's a cousin-in-law who owns a hotel up by Lake Louise.
Really? That's cool.
Yeah. Anyway, so and the second to last oldest one was Sparky and Boots. I didn't name those 2.
Those are classics.
But we found out that Thelma and Louise, who used to get into the most trouble, I found out that Thelma was, I'll just say, ill-equipped to be Thelma.
Oh, you guys didn't check for balls? Jesus.
Yeah, well, no, we did, but
they're hard to find.
they weren't evident until sometime later. So
yeah, sometimes
they were small kitties.
I don't know. I guess I have the eye.
And we found out that Carl was ill-equipped to be Carl. So
Oh, but you still call him Carl,
So
right?
did you change him to like
Carla?
Thomas and Carla? I was saying.
You know what you could do is put the litter box where the cat is going to the bathroom, or spray vinegar on it.
Or maybe they're
it's
just mad because you
obviously
changed their names.
Oh, they could.
I'm thinking Jerry and James and Cliff and Grim.
There you go. Perfect.
What about fails? Why just us?
No, well, all right. So there's
you're gonna have to get a couple more cats.
Yeah, I need more cats.
we need more cat. I should send the mummy cat back out because the dad has been hanging around.
Oh God, don't do that.
Yeah, no, we got her fixed anyway.
Then let her out.
Good.
Let her have some fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. A little side action.
That should probably go in the previous segment.
3,500 good jokes for speakers.
I got I was reading a story. My wife was looking for like part-time job, and there's a float tank place that was opening up here, and I was trying to explain to her what it was, and I was like, well, you know, I need to find something to explain it better than me because I can't explain shit. So the words don't come out of my mouth right. But anyway, I found this cool fucking story on it, and so it was this chick. She's like, so when I arrived to the float spot, it felt very much like a massage parlor with new age music playing softly, trickling fountain, dimming light. I was told to watch a video, watch a video before she went in on how to float properly. 3 to 5% have psychedelic experiences inside the pod. Whoa, she replied. She sighed. She had to sign a waiver that if I pooped or peed or barfed in the tank, I'd have to pay 500 big ones for them to clean it up. Definitely had an oh God, please don't let that be the person moment. So basically, I was taken to my room, which has a bench, a shower, and the white pod that something looked out of 2001 Space Odyssey. I undressed myself. There's like a shower there, so you rinse off, then you get in the pod. You shut the lid. It does look. It looks just like this crazy pod. And yeah. So, anyways, so yeah, you close the lid and it has a light in it. You can turn the light off. So basically, and it's salt water. So yeah, you're just totally like it's almost like a 0G environment. So the music starts playing, and I guess it goes for like 60 minutes, and then you kind of go through the whole thing. She said at one point she opened her eyes and she had a minor freak out. She kept the lid on the pod closed, so it's super hot, and she started feeling super vulnerable to some sort of demonic haunting or something. Closed my eyes again so I wouldn't have to look over to see Satan chilling right beside me. I didn't know it made sense at the time or whatever. So anyway, all in all, you just need to calm your body down, and I guess it's really good for
meditating.
Yeah, that's kind of what you're doing in the tank, but
rebooting.
Yeah, stress, minor aches, pains, depression. A few other things, man.
PTSD.
Yeah, a lot of stuff, man. Because like
synesthesia.
Your body is what's that?
Summoning Satan. Apparently, it's good for also.
Apparently,
really.
Well, dude, if 5% are experiencing psychedelic experiences, I think the first time you're gonna be like, "Fuck," but after a few more times,
I've done it before. This is Cliff Wall. This is
you did it? Oh.
Yeah, this is certified Cliff Wall float tank experience.
Dude, the certified Cliff Wall.
I do not have a logo.
I have 2 recommendations.
He's trying to grow his,
grow what? It's killing him.
He's growing his brand.
He's growing his brand. Yeah.
You need a logo, Cliff.
2 recommendations for float tanks. Like I did
doesn't need a jingle.
It's a fun thing floating. But I recommend like stretching beforehand, because like it being kind of tight while you're in there can really ruin it for you. Because like I had a really awesome time, but there was just something in my neck, and I was like really tight. And if I would have stretched beforehand, it would have been a lot better. And then they say also just have a towel handy just in case you like want to wipe your face, because you can get like salt in your eyes and it kind of ruins it.
Did they used to call these deprivation tanks?
Yes.
Is it the same thing?
Thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sensory deprivation tank, like from
Altered states.
Altered States. Thank you, Jerry.
Yeah.
She mentioned, I didn't read that part. She mentioned her brother told her to watch that movie before, and she's glad she didn't.
Oh, totally.
People go
before
people go overnight in those too. It's not just like you don't go just do it for an hour.
You got to really have game to
7
overnight
hours.
like that.
Yeah, seriously, overnight's crazy. Wow.
You can't. I have a hard time spending a half an hour in that kind of state.
At the DMV.
They should put float tanks in the DMV.
Dude, the DMV
Oh wait,
triggers
Cliff
me
Wall. I
bad.
confused him.
Yeah, he's been called Cliff High quite a bit, and I love it.
That's hilarious.
Cliff High,
Damn.
Cliff Wall. Cliff Wall.
DMV hybrid float tank experience.
Open it up. Let's get it going.
there you
have to
go.
get governmental. You got to get like a government grant or something.
No, you just got to be like AAA. They could do DMV stuff.
Does anybody have anything really good for dinner this week? Food section?
No.
Any good suppers this week?
Ooh, I got pizza from Symposium. It's a Greek place.
Okay.
Yeah, it was really good. Feta
Greek-
cheese.
Greeksa?
I've got some pad thai shrimp in the fridge that I'm going to eat after this.
Nice.
Homemade butternut squash soup, brothers.
Ooh.
Nice.
Yeah.
Thai coconut curry,
you suck.
tuna steaks, and rice.
Sounds good.
man.
Jasmine rice.
I got China food.
No, just normal rice.
China food.
China food.
I didn't have Chinese food. I had China food.
Peanut butter
China.
jelly rice.
Failed. Okay, it's the Crisco.
Yes. It is the Crisco. Absolutely.
It's gun lube. You got to get gun lube.
I just nailed it.
Did you see?
The wontons and the ginger beef stuff. from
Ginger
China.
beef. I love beef and broccoli.
China place.
Is
The
that like
China
a
food.
redheaded guy's dick?
Yes, it is. The ginger.
So we're
Ginger beef.
Egg too young.
22 minutes in before the term "dick" comes up.
I know that's
Some young
Listen,
guy.
That's
I was
impressive.
being good.
Record.
It wasn't me.
it is a record.
Yeah. I usually just enter the room with that or like cock.
It's true.
I'm on a leash tonight, you guys.
Just did the cack hack.
Kickity kick.
What else do we got here? I think that one. Oh, let's do some tech news, guys.
All right.
Cruising with stay. Technology segment.
Teach me on a computer.
Cruising with stay. Technology segment.
Maybe you can teach me how to use a computer.
Yeah, so there's a new botnet running around.
A new bot?
That is a new botnet that's taking control of people's cameras and storage arrays. And
What kind of storage arrays? SMBs, Samba arrays.
Yeah, there's some Netgear storage arrays and some Linksys cameras and TP-Link type devices. But the thing is, it's hitting devices that have known vulnerabilities around arbitrary remote code execution. So they are they hit the device remotely over the internet. They use it to download some malware and install it and execute some code locally, and then that device then goes and date rapes everything in your house or wherever it is, wherever it's installed.
Oh man!
Yikes!
And then begins to probe for other places to spread.
It does,
to.
yeah, it spreads around that way.
Right, it's a virus.
Oh, bueno.
Oh, sort of. Yeah, it's a virus. It's a
Virus bot.
It's by
I
a
know.
virus of activity, but it's a botnet. So it not only takes control of the machine, it actually stays online for use later on or other things.
And some of them even go to sleep. They'll take administrative control of your computer and then go to sleep until a certain time or until it gets a certain signal and will do something.
Yeah, well, it's not so much the computer; it's embedded devices. So it's stuff that lives in the house that like a baby camera or a webcam,
Right, or a router. I get you, but still,
Yeah.
it could still do. It could still send out information or work in a coordinated DDoS attack. And that's what they're commonly used for.
I got a great idea for cruising with steak.
Okay.
You guys can do kind of like a little, not a spin-off, but like kind of like a drama, and you guys can like reenact Y2K on the show.
No thanks.
It's stale. Don't certify that moment, Cliff.
It was boring.
Cruising with Steak Y2K reenactment.
Reenactments.
I think we should do a 9/11 reenactment. That would be better.
Oh man.
Oh god.
So fine. No more reenactment talk.
So the
Okay,
Y2K reenactment would be everybody sitting around on a podcast, or actually sitting around in the same room, getting shit faced, waiting for the lights to go out, and them not ever going out.
Yeah.
True.
That's what happened.
Do a mushroom episode.
Yep. What the hell?
I wasn't waiting. I knew it wasn't going to go out.
Yeah. So just to circle back,
that
the
was
botnet is
funny.
called IoT Reaper.
Reaper?
IoT Reaper.
Interesting.
And is it how does it gain entrance? Is it coming through emails or something?
No, it's stuff that's exposed to the internet. So if you have a camera or a storage array that's exposed to the internet that you can get to from offsite, they're connecting to it that way. They try, I think it's 9 or 10 different ways to get 9 to 10, 9 to 12, something like that, different ways to talk to it to see if it's a particular kind of vulnerability or a particular kind of manufacturer with a specific vulnerability. And then,
or is it a firmware? Is it like a DLNA kind of thing?
Yeah, it's not really DLNA. It's the web interface or the management interface that they're going to.
Okay. So it's the web server's got some kind of bug in it, or the code does.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I gotcha.
So
just when I was feeling like I was going to get back on cam after having been cam hacked in the past.
No, but your camera doesn't go out onto the internet.
Yeah. So the kind of cameras that they're talking about are I'm getting one right now. Let's see.
Like remote control surveillance things that can be controlled through the internet.
Okay, so this is a TP link, I think. No, this is a D link.
Like so IP cameras, you call them, right?
You notice that it's not plugged in or connected to anything.
I got a tech ramble.
I got one too. Go ahead though.
This is a quick, funny one. This is the comic relief.
Okay.
Tech ramble.
Cliff Wall certified.
Yes. So now you go to the thrift shop. And they have all that really old technology once in a while, right? So I'm looking around.
$20 in your pocket?
$20, kind of like that. So they have all that old technology, and I kind of like to look through it a little bit. And I go and I pick up this like rectangular prism looking thing about the size of like 2 cigarette packages kind of stacked together. It's rectangular prism made out of like brown plastic. And I look at the label on it, and it says one of the people that worked at the thrift shop wrote vibrator on it. And I put it down really fast. I go,
was it really a vibrator?
It was just something that vibrated with like a 9-volt battery. I don't know what its purpose was, but I was kind of turned off by it.
So
I'm kind of turned on by it.
So Cliff,
that's the exact opposite effect it should have had.
So Cliff, caution. If you go to pentestpartners.com, penetration test partners, this is not a sex joke, although there's
an open door right there.
There is a report on Pentest Partners that I stumbled across when looking at this IoT Reaper thing. Pentest Partners was one of the companies that reported one of the vulnerabilities that IoT Reaper uses. Pentest Partners has a report about a vulnerability in an interconnected sex toy. It's an internet connected sex toy.
Was that that thing you were showing us, Jer? That they use.
I heard about that.
I know all about this.
I do actually. It's a Bluetooth connection to it.
Yeah. So there's a phone app or some damn thing where you text each other, and it's kind of a teledildonics thing.
Teledildonics.
You pay with like these like.
That's what it's actually called, teledildonics.
Yeah,
some type of coin, right, or whatever.
That's what there's a type of that device that people use on services like Chatterbait, where you can get tips through the audience, and that will activate the vibrator.
Yeah, so you can send it commands and send chat messages and things like that. And the company swears that the whole thing's encrypted, but it's not.
Oh man.
Tech Ramble.
So how about this Sophia, the first android in Saudi Arabia that gained citizenship? That's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
I saw that android, they call it, right? I saw that thing debate another android on a TED Talk last year.
That's insane.
Sophia did?
Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
And the other robot got really nasty.
Was it Hans? Hans and Sophia?
I think so. Yeah, I wanted to kill all humans. It was like Bender, pretty much.
So, but Hans was the older one. Sophia's like the next generation.
Yeah, there she is, right there.
Yeah.
Shit's creepy.
I know this one.
So
did she have to pay for her citizenship? Did she have to take a test?
No, she was just awarded citizenship. It's a future investment initiative.
So basically, they want to give strawman accounts to androids now, right?
Bingo, bango. That could work. Yeah.
So they're going to make androids so they can do whatever, get them into the system and make them work forever. Permanent slaves.
Yeah.
So does that entitle them to healthcare?
Probably. If they have citizenship, they probably are entitled to everything that a regular person would be entitled to.
It's a monthly maintenance fee.
Interesting.
Prepare yourselves the 4th through the 6th of November. There's going to be a EMP drill by the DOD going on.
Oh shit!
Where?
Yeah, I all over.
Where'd you read this?
As a ham radio operator, I'm going to be monitoring this whole thing.
Yeah,
excellent.
Elements
I love
of
ham radio. Yes.
Elements of the. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
What's your call sign?
That's the day that Antifa declared war on the U.S. too. November 4th. Just saying.
Oh, that's just Antifa.
Yeah, that's going to be going on for sure. There's going to be some that. Hey man, whenever these drills are going, we all know the drill of the drill,
it's
right?
The DHS drills that are the problem, though, not the DOD ones.
Yeah. The DHS, yeah. Well, I mean, anyway, they're going to be conducting communications interoperability. Yeah. So between the 4th and the 6th, simulating a very bad day scenario. Amateur radio and Mars organizations will take part. There you go, dude. Yeah. These exercises will begin with a national massive coronal mass ejection event which will impact the nation's power grid as well as all forms of traditional communications, including landline telephone, cell phone, satellite, internet connectivity. The Army Mars program manager Paul English explained it in an announcement. You know, that's fucking crazy, dude.
So are they going to just simulate knocking this stuff out, or are they going to actually?
They might actually knock it out. Who knows? Maybe they'll knock out like an isolated area. Just test a portion of the public.
Well, they were talking.
There's nasty solar flares that day too. Watch.
Or those fuckers over in, I don't know if. I mean, we probably have the tech to stop it, but North Korea, they could fucking launch a fucking nuke up and then nuke it up in the sky in the ionosphere and fry everybody. That way.
I don't think so. The way these exercises always go, the way they always go, is that there's some collection of both government agencies and private enterprises that collaborate on these things, and they're kind of a tabletop exercise. They're not usually involving any kind of technology, although the radio thing I think they kind of have to, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to figure out one of the things that what the article that you were reading from was from the Amateur Radio Relay League. They were the ones that published it. So what they intend to do is go county by county against the 3,000 umpty squad counties that they're going in the United States, and they're going to go county by county and try to make contact with people. So the people that are able and willing and interested and have nothing better to do and don't have enough Monster Energy drink or beer that are sitting by their radios that day will answer as available if they've got the equipment to do it. So it's kind of a tabletop exercise, and in the amateur radio arena, I'm speculating that it's probably going to be kind of like a contest kind of thing where you try to make as much contact with as many people as possible on a given band in a particular time slot. So that's what it sounds like it's going to be to me. And then someone within the feds, DOD, DHS, et cetera, will be keeping track to see how it performs and where it performs well for follow-on work. So, yeah.
Tech news.
Very interesting.
More than you ever wanted to know about ham radio.
That's all right. It's interesting. Definitely. Ham sounds pretty cool. Jerry, what's the crypto market looking like?
I've got the rig here next to the computer, so...
Jerry, you're muted.
I wasn't talking yet.
Oh, okay.
Jerry, teach us how to...
Bitcoin
crypto?
went up to 6,000 this week, and then there was a sell off, usually profit taking. Went down to 5,500. It's going back up again. The rest of the coin markets really haven't responded in kind. Bitcoin's kind of going up by itself, whereas all the other coins kind of followed it. As Bitcoin went up, everything went up. Now they're kind of all finding their own fundamentals, their own technical trading limits. It's not necessarily tied to Bitcoin anymore, which is good. Also, I don't know if it was last week or since we've talked, Jamie Dimon has reversed his position on Bitcoin publicly. So interesting news.
Did you guys hear about in the Grimerica chats? Bill Anderson got a hard time at a 7-Eleven with a Canadian penny.
No.
Bill the shill.
He was given a penny, a couple pennies with his change to pay for something, and they're like, "We don't want to take this Canadian penny," and they gave him a hard time, and then eventually took the Canadian penny.
Man, Bill's he actually has I think he mines Bitcoin. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, the guy here.
He's talking about that. Interesting.
I watched the Joe Rogan and Tom DeLonge interview.
How'd that go?
DeLonge.
Was it ridiculous?
Interesting. Yeah, kind of.
Kind of interesting.
Yeah, kind of interesting. I mean, also he explained it a little better than he did at the conference, like about what they're doing. But anyway, I mean, yeah, he had a lot of I can't tell you, because basically the way he said it was the things that he said he couldn't tell you about was everything he wrote in Secret Machines. I guess that after he wrote that, that's when these some of these higher up people came and were like, "How the fuck did you get all this information?" And basically,
he didn't write it.
Yeah, well, that too, but yeah, there was a lot of people involved in the project. He's had this company for like 2 years now or something.
Right. To the stars.
I thought Peter Levenda was the
Peter Levenda co-authored it. Yeah.
Oh.
So he wrote it basically.
So, but other than that, I mean, it was interesting. I mean, he was more laid back for sure than you've seen him on recently, but I mean, telling dick jokes and stuff. But like,
dude, did Joe like grill him at all? Like
all the time,
good.
He's like, dude, what if the people look at you like fucking sideways and shit, dude? He's like, every day, all the time, yeah. And he's like, what do you say to that? And he's like, you don't know the stuff I know. Okay,
yeah,
that's all he
fucking told.
Saying.
Yeah, he's getting Benewitzed.
Yeah, maybe, but he's doing his part. He's the media part of this thing. So
James really wants to believe it.
Dude, I could see it. I could sense it in his voice. He really wants to. I'm
just playing devil's advocate, dude. I just watched it.
Wasn't he the lead singer of what, 311?
No, Blink 182, man. Just kidding.
Yeah,
All mixed
that's
up.
what they were saying. But anyway, but yeah, he actually has a piece of a ship, a piece of metal that has that element 115 in it.
Yeah, allegedly that he can't show anybody, and
he's gonna be doing. He talked about it a lot, so I think he's gonna be showing it. And they have a lot of technology things coming up.
A lot.
So how do we know it's element 115?
You get your little tester kit out, like for gold and silver.
Yeah. What the fuck's wrong with you?
You just bite it.
How dare you?
That's element 115.
Yeah. Well, it's I don't know. Yeah. Go watch the thing.
Look at it with your little fucking monocle.
What if it's 264 and a half's?
Yeah.
It could be.
What if it's some kind of unstable isotope of 115?
It might be.
But basically, it's like it's many layers of metals that aren't fucking found on Earth, and you're able to apply frequencies to it, and it changes shape, and then it'll bounce back. And they're going to be demonstrating this whole thing soon, like
Not
in
found
months.
on Earth, my ass.
Hey man, I don't know.
Like a UFO made out of slinkies or something.
Well,
yeah,
maybe it's not found on Earth because it's a
bends
manufactured thing.
It bends
This is my
space time.
suspicious case.
That kind of sounds like the movie. Fucking Blankhead.
Here you met Sally.
Blankhead?
I remember that movie.
You talking about Blank Man? That's a good movie.
Meteor Man.
Yes, Meteor Man was awesome.
Robert Townsend.
Super 8, where his spaceship is
Oh god!
Right.
With vibration and frequency.
Mm-hmm.
I only made it about 45 minutes into that show, and I finished with the thought of look how much work it takes to bore me.
That's a J.J. Abrams movie.
JJ's.
I liked that. It was on like a week ago, I think. I watched most of it again.
Interesting.
Be checking out Stranger Things too. That comes out.
Yeah, dude.
Friday, tomorrow.
Tonight.
Tonight?
Minutes.
No,
Yeah,
tomorrow.
should be out very soon.
Yeah, in 20 minutes for me and Mike.
Exactly.
You gonna binge watch it, James, and not sleep tonight?
I might.
Do it.
I might
Oh,
try to
'cause
watch
it's on Netflix.
Netflix.
I might try to watch at least one of them or something.
Yeah.
So, what time zone is it you're in?
I'm in Cleveland. So
Oh, man.
Eastern.
East yeah.
Cleveland.
I'm in the Cleveland time zone.
Fuck yeah, I don't. Yeah, I'm in Cleveland, bitch. That's it.
Say it like Jeff Bridges in Starman. Cleveland.
Cleveland.
So I'm speaking to the future right now. This is
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah,
Time
man.
travel. It's right here. Real
That's
deal.
me.
This is
Time traveler.
Yeah,
Right here.
Jerry's a time traveler.
Jerry's a time traveler. Donald Trump's a time traveler. It all makes sense.
Oh, we're all time traveling.
I'm a time traveler, but I just go forward at the same pace all the time.
Yes,
Grim,
just-
back to our conversation earlier. One more thing to add to that pile. I have a Time Lord T-shirt.
Oh, a Time Lord T-shirt? Even
I could
better.
dance.
Many of them.
Man. Yeah,
Oh,
Jerry's
yeah.
a total Time Lord.
100% probably.
Lord.
Tom DeLonge, he's all about the fabric of space time.
James Cruz and Grimstick.
Folded.
James Cruz and Grimstick. Hey man.
Oh man.
G
can
R
only
I M
imagine
S T A
what's
K at Gmail. James Cruz and Grimstick. Hey man.
All right. Hate mail time.
Awesome.
This one
My
is
favorite part of
from
the show, by the way.
I don't think I've read this one, but I could have, but I don't think I did. Vaping
Too bad
Gagina.
if you did. Just write it.
Vaping Gagina. And they say, I'm going to travel back in time, find a dinosaur egg, and bring it back to the future. I'm going to then sit on the egg until it hatches, raise it, love it, and then stick it on you dumb fucks. I will laugh uncontrollably as it bites you in the face and neck, rapes your already well-used anuses, and then mangles your lifeless and helpless carcasses. To top it off, I will be touching myself inappropriately the entire time that dinosaur business is going on. Thank you very much, Vaping Gagina.
That's my favorite side of Jerry's personality.
Wow.
This is Vaping Gagina.
Which part?
Yeah.
The one that wrote that.
What is this? This is from Long Dong. Hi, I came across your podcasts, and I'm not sure what your intention is behind it. I hope it's not to mock the Blue Avians. However, even if it's not, it still seems disrespectful, and personally I was offended by it. Even if you don't believe in space birds of peace, it is still mocking our new religion and our Lord, Ra Tier Air. Ra is the Jesus allegory alien who died an excruciatingly painful death for us on a cross. Ra told me so. Don't think I don't know. Again, I don't know why you made this podcast, but you should reconsider it. Just want to let you know. Long Dong. Oh, P.S. Ra touched me with his noodly appendage, and now I'm woke as fuck. Fuck you. I mean that.
Wow.
It'd be unfortunate if he said "fuck you" and didn't mean it. I mean,
Yeah, right. You gotta spike the ball on that.
When did
this one's from noodly appendages.
Yeah,
This is
when did we get those?
I don't know.
It would just be gratuitous to say fuck you.
Would be. Sean Shameless says, Grimsteak, you're a fucking fuck. James, you too are a fucking fuck. Love you guys. And that's Sean. And okay, we got another one from Ryne Sigurdson, which I think that's how he corrected me on his last name.
Ryne.
Yes.
Gotta take a drink. Sigurdson. This hate mail is for the three stooges you have as semi-regular guests on your intros.
Oh, man.
All right. Sean, the guy who talks like a gay Mickey Mouse, sounds like an STD carrier that has been let loose on the Vienna Boys choir bus. At least when he uses that slightly more masculine voice, he sounds like a male. A prepubescent male, but a male nonetheless. Jerry is obviously a bot. No way in hell a real person could have that much information at his fingertips. Too bad he's usually wrong. Props to whoever programmed Jerbot, though for giving him that velvety, sexy voice.
Yes.
Failed is just about 2 pecks short of a bushel. I hear that his soap on a rope loofah sponge collection is pretty damn disgusting, which isn't surprising since his ass is like 2 fine hams that the whole Alberta prison inmate population has had their way with. and something that has been bothering me for a while now. How come nobody ever sees Elvis in a checkout line at a grocery store anymore? That's that. Thank you, Ryan.
Wow.
And that's our hate mail segment. So send us hate mail, grimsteak@gmail.com. We're always accepting more.
Find us on the Twitters.
I don't have that much information at my fingertips.
And people don't see Elvis at the checkout line at the grocery store because none of it doesn't have email anymore. So
my blood elf mage, which is now level 15, his name is Elfvis.
Elfvis.
It looks like Elvis.
Very nice.
I do have hams in my pants.
Yeah, they're called your thighs.
Elfvis, does he have like a +3 pompadour or something?
I think so.
No, he's an elf. He's got big ears. If you look at the character, it looks like Elvis.
And nice sideburns. Well, yeah, we're just about at an hour. Let's wrap this bitch up. What do you guys got anything to pimp? Anybody got anything they want to pimp or plug or anything? Just like 100 people in here.
I would like a meatball sandwich.
I will make you a meatball sandwich.
I would like a meatball sandwich.
Cliff, where can people find your music? All the jingles?
They'll find it somewhere.
Yeah, it's in the description. Check it out. That guy, you have anything to plug? You got a blog or a vlog? Or you got like a girl cam series or something? Somebody could donate and get the vibrator going?
Dare Dorm.
Dare Dorm?
Who, me?
Nothing. No, that guy.
That guy.
Okay.
That guy. Yeah.
You got anything you're working on you want to plug?
What do you want to plug?
I was on the moon at the time.
What happens?
Dead. Yes. No, I don't know. What's the answer?
I would like a meatball sandwich.
I actually would like a meatball sandwich.
There you go.
There we go. Nish, you got anything you want to plug?
Jerry's arse.
Oh, damn.
Damn. I'm going to have to pay you a visit, aren't I?
I learned something new about Suzanne.
About me?
So there was crossover there for some reason.
Yeah.
It's because we're
she's my second
we're
future ex-wife.
Future ex-wives.
I was your first future ex-wife.
You both are.
Future
Is this one of those things like Johnny Carson? Next time you're going to find
Suzanne's the matriarch.
Is this one of those things like Johnny Carson? You're going to find a woman you hate and buy her house?
More like, I was thinking more like sister wives, but you know what?
Sister
wives. Man.
Sister
I
ex-wives.
didn't know you're from Kentucky.
They're not my cousins. Don't get that mixed up.
Right. Okay. Sorry.
We're
South
not
Carolina.
related.
Not Nephilim.
Mike, what are you doing over there?
I am driving through the middle
Wait,
of
we didn't get to plug our shit, man.
Oh.
Yeah, you just plugged Jerry's arse.
Rewind, Jerry.
Yes. Is it wrong? Now, we have our podcast, Nish and I do a podcast on Wednesday nights called Nox Mente. You can find that on YouTube. And I'll put, and hopefully there'll be a link in the show notes. The sparse
There will be.
and poorly grammatic structure. Show notes.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. Yeah. It'll be on there. I'll throw a link in. That I can do. my terrible
awesome.
descriptions.
Excellent.
Is Mike home yet?
I don't think so.
No,
You
Mike's
still driving, Mike?
Yeah, I'm in the middle of nowhere, Virginia. It's really dark out.
Turn your
Oh, you're
brights
in
on. Don't
Virginia?
hit any animals. Be careful.
Stay away from those Appalachian kids.
Hit as many animals as possible.
Okay, or just hit as many animals as possible.
You guys should interview some black-eyed kids on your.
Oh, do you know any black-eyed kids we could interview, Felix?
No.
Man, if you run across any, send them my
Or
way.
somebody who's met one.
Yeah, or we should do
I
that.
was a black-eyed
They're pretty freaky.
Yeah. Have you ever met one, that guy?
I've never met a black-eyed kid.
No.
Don't want to.
Yeah. Although
Gabe-
I've got 2 cats that I'm about to kill.
Don't want to.
Murder
Gave a
cats.
kid a black eye.
How do
good
you know
meat.
we don't want to?
Well.
All right.
They might be really cool.
Probably find one at an adoption agency.
So the only thing I know about black-eyed kids is that if you invite them into the house, it never ever ends well.
No, that's what I've always read.
I've never heard a story of anyone who ever did let him in. It's always
Well, I've heard stories of people that let them in.
Yeah, Linda Moulton Howe has some archives.
She's credible.
Yeah.
I'm particularly freaked out by that whole concept. I don't
You
know
can't
why.
say
That one
never.
really resonates with me.
Yeah. There's something to it, I think. I don't know.
It's a crazy one.
Bullshit.
A lot of crazy shit.
Thomas
Yeah, you think
Sheridan.
everything's bullshit though, Phil, so your opinion doesn't count.
That's why
Thomas Sheridan put out this thing. He said that he thought it was a manifestation of people's guilt for abortion. From abortion.
Oh,
Could be.
that's interesting.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, that's bullshit for a guy to say something like that.
All right, so let's
Whatever.
wrap this bitch up. Go to,
On that note.
we just enjoy the show with Josh Cutchin. You find our shit in the description. Love you guys. Good night.
You gotta overlay some jazzy music on top of that.
Oh yeah. Peace, love, and light.
And like
Love and peace and bacon grease.
Woo.
Cruising with sit down, buckle up. Cruising with sit down, buckle up. Cruising with
All right, we got Joshua Cutchin on the show tonight, author of such fantastic books as The Brimstone Deceit, A Trojan Feast, and his newest book, Tubas and Tulpas. So
I wish that you could make a tuba tulpa. I mean, these things. It's like it's one of the most cost prohibitive instruments to play.
Oh, I bet.
If you ever want to switch horns, it's like, a nice professional model is going to run you about $8,000.
Really?
Yeah, I've seen some horns that retail for 20, and there's not a horn on the planet that's worth 20, but there's some that have a sticker price of 20. That's just stupid expensive.
Exactly.
TV radio sound effects. Yeah.
You ever dabble in the sousaphone?
Oh man, no, the sousaphone is where I make my money. You kidding me?
Yeah, for real?
Yeah. So I've got 2 tubas and a sousa, and I just I can play trombone, but I haven't practiced trombone.
Right.
So I teach a lot of trombone lessons because I'm usually teaching middle schoolers or early high schoolers. But I just picked up a trombone. But yeah, the sousaphone is where you make your money if you play tuba. I will go weeks probably. Well, it's not probably a little bit of hyperbole, but I will go weeks, as in 3 weeks, and the only thing that I'll play outside of the house is the sousa, because people want Mardi Gras, people want second lines, people want Dixieland, people want stuff like that.
Yeah. You pretty busy right now with Oktoberfests and stuff?
Yeah, it's the 2 times of the year, man. It's Mardi Gras and Oktoberfest are the 2 times of the year that tuba players are really busy, or actually in demand.
Yes.
People like to get around a bunch of rock star tuba players, but we don't.
Very nice. So you recently just got back from Ireland, huh?
Yeah, I think I'm finally over the jet lag. It just kicked my tail. It was my first trip to Europe. At the risk of sounding like a hayseed, I know people who have been all over Europe, and this is my first trip. But
I've never been, so you got me beat.
Well, I will recommend it to anybody because I had a friend, a musician friend of mine who just got back just before I got back, and he had his birthday this past weekend. And we were talking about it. Once you get over there, it's super affordable.
Really?
Did you feel life threatened at any point in time over there?
Oh no, dude! I would rather walk alone in Ireland. I would rather drive in Ireland. Yeah, I mean, like in my experience, and I'm sure there's some people who have more experience than me, but in my experience, like like I said, the meals are really affordable. Like we were looking at dinners that were like the equivalent of like $13-14.
Whoa!
At a nice sit down restaurant.
Wow.
So like it's affordable. The attractions are all quite affordable if you're into the history thing. When you drive, people don't seem like they're in quite a hurry. There aren't cops. Like I think we saw like 2 cop cars, and everybody's bending traffic rules for the situation in terms of like not only situationally bending traffic rules for like purposes of courtesy as well.
Right.
So in other words, if you're a larger car, people will pull over to the side of the road and let you by. Like nobody's in really that much of a hurry. Didn't seem like. And then just everybody's like civil servants are polite, which is something that you don't usually run into in America. I can't imagine what the DMV is like in Ireland, but it can't be worse than it is here.
Wow.
Nice.
The DMV.
So what'd you go to Ireland for?
Because it was on my bucket list mainly. I mean, honestly, now I am going to sound like a hayseed. Like I got back from Ireland and I'm like, okay, so Scotland and the UK and then, everywhere else in Europe, I don't have this drive that I did with Ireland that like I need to go there before I die.
Are you Irish?
No, I'm Scots German.
Yeah.
Of course, I haven't done the 23andMe thing. Like maybe there's some Irish buggery back there in the.
That's what I was gonna say. I was like, I wonder. Yeah, I meant to ask if you were, Irish or whatever.
23andMe, they have your DNA now.
Yeah.
You're gonna get cloned.
I know, right? No, I haven't done 23andMe yet. I need to.
Oh, don't do it.
To find out, but yeah. I mean, well, I don't know.
I'm not spitting in no cup.
I mean. If I had a clone of me, think how much more I could get done.
It's true.
Yeah.
Plus, when people tell me to go fuck myself, I could just be like,
there you go. Done deal.
Yeah.
Two for.
But so I went because I'm sort of an Anglophile in general, and I have always had a real soft spot for pub culture. One of the things that this trip really enlightened me to is that it really demystified the Irish pub. Like, growing up in the States, it's like every Irish pub looks like the coziest place with the best beer. And like, you get over there and you're like, no, there are
McCarthy's.
Yeah. It's like there are shitty bars all over the world. A shitty bar in America is different than a shitty bar in Ireland.
A dive's a dive.
Yeah, exactly. But then also, because I'm, eyeball deep in fairy lore, and it was really a profound experience to see some of these places that I had talked about, to see examples. I mean, I ended up seeing a pretty broad breadth of fairy forts, fairy wraths, and whatnot. That's eventually going to go up as a Patreon video on Where Did the Road Go? Nice. I've edited the video together. Sarai just hasn't sent it out yet. But I'll be sure to share with you guys too. So I saw a spectrum of these things. So now that when I write about these things, I have some sense of what I'm actually talking about. Yeah. But also, I ended up having a couple little. It really helped me to contextualize the stuff that I write about, and it helped drive home some things about fairy lore that I kind of suspected but didn't quite appreciate until I was there, boots on the ground. Like the thing that I keep on coming back to is that it is unambiguous that the places where the fairies inhabit are ancient, prehistoric human settlements. Human, like not mystical, not weird, human. And since then, something mystical has grown out of that. Now, what I find interesting is, does that mean that, it could mean a couple of things. Did ancient man pick a mystical site to build on? Did something about the site become mystical in the intervening, millennia? Yeah. Or what is or the thing that I'm really suspecting now more than anything else? What does that really say about these legends of the Fae folk, and the fact that these Fae folk are always so tied to the dead, but different from the dead. How do you sort of work that out? So, it confirms. Well, for me, it confirms some suspicions that I talk about in my next book. But as confirmed as suspicions can be in this, like I hope that if you talk to me in a year, I'd have different opinions. Right. On this sort of thing, because I think that's the sign of somebody who truly has an open mind. I don't want to be, my Twitter handle right now is therefore Fae folk.
Yes.
Right.
But I do feel like it's, in terms of, if you look at like sort of the mythologies that are built around certain aspects of Forteana, like ufology, Sasquatchology. No, not really cryptozoology, because it's more of a grab bag, but like trying to explain everything as Sasquatch, trying to explain everything as aliens, trying to explain everything as Jinn. The only thing that to me really sort of answers the thing that sits in the middle of the Venn diagram really is fairy folklore. Not to say that it's all fairies, but whatever that's describing is the most universal concept, I guess.
It's funny because when like you say fairies, like the quickest thing that comes to my brain is like Tinkerbell or like something small, like a little fairy-ish type thing, and that's
what's your idea of what you're searching for? Is it a ball of light? Is it what?
Well, it was interesting because I did run into my share of people over in Ireland who knew what fairy lore was, but I also ran into some people in a pub one night who were like, "You're like 6'3" and over 300 pounds. Why are you into fairies?" They still have that, sort of Disney.
It's not what you think.
Yeah, it's not. Where I've sort of come around to right now. So for anybody who doesn't know, fairy lore really describes like a taxonomy of spirit phenomena.
Right.
So while there are the most universal shared quality of the Fae folk, the good folk, the people of peace, the gentry, while the most shared quality is their short stature and their propensity to live underground and their propensity to abduct women and children, it really does encompass the term fairies an entire cosmology of entities of various shapes and sizes. I mean, not only elves, trolls, dwarves, but also stuff like giants could be considered one of the Fae folk. Mermaids, sirens, there's some ambiguity about even like lake monsters being sort of Fae folk, because you'll hear stuff about kelpies and pukas and water horses as
sirens.
Mermaids.
Yeah, it's sort of like a land-based version of the siren. The puka would appear as like a dark stallion on a country road at night, and if you hopped on the puka, it would carry you into the lake, which sort of ties into that whole idea about water horses. And the Nessie often has been depicted with a more equine head. So it really is like, it reminds me in a lot of the way that people will see a creature on YouTube in a video and they'll say, "Oh, it must be an alien," without really thinking about what that means. That's sort of the way that was the role that Fae folk played, in I would say worldwide cultures in the past, is this idea of this discrete spirit phenomena. Now, where I've been sort of going with that, back to your original question, I was hoping to see anomalous orbs of light. I didn't get that. I didn't really. I had one thing that was kind of vaguely anomalous, but nothing that I could really hang my hat on as something that was really strange. What I think is going on, and where I'm sort of coming around to, is that there is this long-standing conflation and association between the Fae folk and the dead. People in fairy stories will often see dead relatives, dead friends, dead family members, or a lot of times if they're being warned to not eat the food, it will be a dead neighbor that they see that says, "I came here and I ate the food and I was stuck here." But at the same time, to say that the fairies are the dead is not quite genuine enough. So where I'm sort of coming around to it with a lot of these phenomena is that we're really looking at part of an ecology of spirits, to borrow a term from Gordon White. Part of an ecology of spirits, probably that serves a psychopompic role. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with that term, but psychopomps in especially in shamanic cultures are spirits that escort and act as intercessors between the living and the dead. Almost like if shamans are to tribes as psychopomps are to the spirit world.
Okay.
They interact in our world on the spirit world's behalf, whereas shamans interact with the spirit world on our behalf.
Right.
If that makes any sense. So that's sort of where I am at right now. Again, I hope that opinion evolves, but I feel pretty comfortable personally looking at it through that lens right now.
Right. Right on.
So 10 minutes later, that's your
no, that's fine. Have you ever had any kind of experience, Josh?
Yeah, I'm actually a pretty skeptical guy when it comes down to it, but I've had a couple of things that are pretty unambiguous, and some things that are ambiguous but still fun. Probably the earliest thing I can remember is when my parents were building, were working on an addition to their house that they're still in, that I grew up in and they're still in. We would find stacks of 4 quarters in the most unlikely places, like not only at the construction site, but also, in the house that was being added onto. We'd pull out a book that we hadn't looked at in, 3 years or whatever. And behind the book, where the book was sitting would be
That's
a stack
crazy.
of 4 quarters. Yeah, it's sort of poltergeisty.
Yeah.
It's sort of poltergeisty, sort of fey folky.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure I'm forgetting something else, but the most profound things that I've had happen to me, where I saw what I suspect was the ghost of a young Civil War soldier, a young Confederate soldier. I was visiting Stonewall Jackson's home in Virginia, which during the war was actually used as a hospital. And it's a 2-story house on the tour. And when you're on the tour, one group sort of has to wait for the other group to ascend the steps if there are multiple tours going on, because the stairway is about as, I kind of had to turn sideways because I got this, even though I never played football, this football player says well, the football player's breadth, I guess. Anyway.
Yeah.
So the other group was waiting at the top of the stairs, and as I looked into the crowd to my left, there was this one young man who was sort of really stood out from the crowd because he was in, his Confederate grays, and he had sunken cheeks. He looked like he was about 13 or 14, which wouldn't have been, out of the question for people serving in that conflict. And I mentioned something to my mom because I thought it was like a cosplayer, I thought it was like, I'm going to dress up as Darth Maul for the next Star Wars movie, which I may or may not have done in my past.
We've all been there. It's okay. It's Phantom Menace opening night. Heck yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's no different. It's no different than football fans dressing up crazy. No different at all. But I remembered speaking to my mom about it, and she didn't see him, and then no one else on the tour had seen him. And not only that, but there was, serving as gatekeepers were ticket vendors there in the gift shop, and no one had purchased a ticket wearing that sort of outfit. So
weird.
That's maybe, but it was really striking because I didn't perceive it as anything really anomalous at first. It was only later it snowballed.
Right. So it looked like a physical, like a real person. It didn't have an apparition or anything, or like
he wasn't transparent. He wasn't floating. He was, missing half his face or something.
Fortosa information.
Yeah. And then I dated a girl who was into ghost hunting, and we went to Waverly Hills Sanatorium.
Oh, where is that? I've heard.
Sanatorium, I always forget. It's in
Waverly Hills,
Louisville, Kentucky.
Oh, okay.
It's the site. Well, supposedly the site of one of the largest unmarked graves in history because of the tuberculosis epidemic. At its height, people were dying at a rate of, I believe, one person an hour, 24/7.
Whoa!
On site.
And chuck them in.
And the stuff that they were doing to people to try to combat the TB was like removing ribs and like just
anything.
Yeah, it's almost like you had Nazi experimentation on how to fix
exactly.
But I experienced cold spots. I experienced some anomalous light phenomena that if everyone on the team was to be believed by walkie-talkie was not them.
Mm-hmm.
And most profoundly, I had a door slam shut in my face, which, it's hard to get the toothpaste back into the tube after that,
Yeah.
It was the old Wilhelm. Love it.
You got that.
But,
it's my go-to.
The door was, I said it slammed. It slammed open in my face, which is even sort of weirder than it slammed shut.
Wow, yeah.
I was in Hellboy mode, so I was cracking wise, and this was before I was, I was obviously been a fan of Fortiana for a long time, but I'd never really, done anything with it. And so I was cracking wise is probably a way to cope with just the weirdness of it all. And I mean, this is a very truncated version because my girlfriend experienced a lot of stuff that I found out later that was pretty much validated, that I've heard from other sources about some of the things that people see there. So that I didn't know about, I'm pretty sure she didn't know about. But we were getting ready to go down a stairwell, I believe on the 4th floor. And we got to the door that we were going to open and go down the stairs. And it goes from completely shut to so wide open that it actually smacks the wall. Like,
wow.
Like from as shut as can be to as open as can be, and like making the loudest racket as it just goes pop. It didn't grow like it was shut to open in the space of like less than a second.
Just blasted.
Yeah, like somebody kicked it from the other side.
Fuck.
And I don't know what to make of that. I mean, the property is, at least at the time, I believe, was privately owned. So I'm sure somebody would say that there was a pneumatic tube in there or some sort of,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I've heard of haunted like these so-called haunted houses that they've actually like, people are paying good money to go to one of these maybe group events or whatever, like almost a stay overnight type ghost hunt thing. And I've heard like, I think it was in like Cincinnati, Ohio, they have a place that's supposedly haunted like that, but then they decked the house like out with a bunch of that kind of shit.
Yeah,
like
you can't trust that.
Sensory, like all that kind of stuff. But
it really muddies the waters. It really does. I remember there was one episode of Ghost Hunters where they visited a restaurant and like they had like, spookablast sound effects, and they found out like, oh, you see a woman when you turn off, the light in the women's room, you see a woman in the mirror. Because it's a two-way mirror, and there's a woman mannequin that lights up behind it. So, and for Ghost Hunters to actually come out and admit that it's fake, it must have been like just must have not passed the smell test to high heaven. But,
let's like we had a. No, you go ahead.
And I was going to say, like, at the same time, there were definite like. I feel like I'm as psychically dead as a doornail, contrary to what some people have told me. But even I could like feel some things, and I had some things that were corroborated with other people. There was when I was in the kitchen, I felt like somebody had kicked me in the nuts, and one of the other guy, which was the exact same description that one of the other guys on the team said later, which I thought was really odd. Like a light, maybe like a love tap in the nuts, not
just a full on. You just drop.
Just graze the nuts.
It's like when your nephew tosses you the remote and he doesn't aim the aim, but it lands in your lap.
Ball tag.
Yeah, it's just a little tag.
But yeah, so just some little stuff like that. So, but that's that is definitely the most unambiguous thing that's happened to me.
Never any UFOs or alien encounters.
No, if somebody really wanted to dig up something and discredit me at some point, they can probably, if Ben and Aaron still saved their voicemails from back in like 2011 or something, I did call into MU because I used to be terrified of alien abduction, which is ironic because I write and think about it so much now. But I used to be terrified of alien abduction, and I was living by myself in Monroe, Georgia. And I kept on seeing this large, bright light in the sky when I would walk around. I was like, shit. I'd go to the park that night and it would follow me around. I'd go out to dinner that night, it would follow me around. And so I called MU and I was like, oh, guys, it's having a UFO. And then the next night it was there, and the next night it was there, and the next night it was there. And I'm like, it's Venus, you dumbass.
Dude, I do that every morning when I'm driving to work.
That's sort of the state that I was in. I remember one time I let my phone get to the lowest point in the battery that it had ever been, and the low battery chime went off. But it only would go off like every 3 minutes. So every time it would go off, I was like, they're coming to get me. And actually the biggest thing, like the biggest sort of therapy for me, the biggest sort of therapy for me to sort of get over that intense fear that I had was the realization that this probably isn't a nuts and bolts phenomena.
Mm-hmm. Because
if it's not, physically based, if it's not little green scientists, then you have a toehold somehow. If this is tied into your consciousness, then you have some sort of means of sovereignty and asserting that sovereignty. Plus, it would be at this point, I'd love it to be like, hey, I'm on to you guys. Can you ask me some questions? Like, this is not the way these usually go. What's going on here?
So you mentioned earlier about how the like fairy abductions, like taking women and children. Do you think that may tie into something with these contactees or UFO abductions, or think there might be some sort of correlation?
Yeah, I mean, I'm of the opinion, and I said this on Twitter. I think you liked it on Twitter today.
Well, probably.
Or loved it, or whatever the heart means. You hearted it on Twitter.
I hearted you. I heart all your stuff.
I'm convinced that you can take any aspect of. No, this is carefully worded. You can take any tiny slice of an aspect of alien abduction, and you will find an analog in fairy lore. I don't think the inverse is true. I don't think you can take a slice of fairy lore and find an analog in UFO lore. In other words, I think that fairy lore is a lot bigger and quirkier and folkloric and sometimes nonsensical than ufology is. But the alien abduction experience and a lot of UFO sightings, I think every aspect of that you can find an analog. Again, since some people will say, like, this is my therefore fairies thing, but it's not quite that. It's more like, again, I think that both the modern alien abduction scenario and like the fairy abduction scenario are describing something objective. I don't think either of them get it right. But I think that they're describing the same thing. And I think sometimes in a sort of motivic way, fairy lore does it better. But I'm convinced that they're describing the same thing, and that they're both falling short of describing whatever this objectively is, if that makes any sense.
Right.
And that's like I said, that's what the third book is all about. It's specifically about paranormal child abduction and drawing parallels between them. Some of the stuff that people are going to read, if they're familiar with fairy lore or UFO lore, it's going to be treading some old ground. But I sort of have to set up those pieces before you can say, and look at this, and bring them both together. But I think that this also, I sort of alluded to this on Binnal's show too, but I think that the only existing mythology, as it were, that explains a lot of the missing 411 stuff is fairy folklore.
Mm-hmm.
People want to say aliens, but so are we saying that aliens can control the weather? Not saying that the weather couldn't be controlled through some sort of scientific means, but it seems like the motivation behind that would be a little bit questionable. And it's not a serial killer because it's happening over spans of centuries. It's not Bigfoot because Bigfoot doesn't pluck people out of the sky, and but the one thing that sort of answers a lot of these questions, even the stuff that the stuff that's the really odd, anomalous stuff, I think for the most part fits well into the fairy folklore.
Definitely. Right. You notice, since studying fairies and everything, or just going into this topic, do you notice like anything with your older books? Like, are there any smells or anything that may tie into this? Or because I remember you mentioned, well, just with the food, like you were mentioned, just on all the podcasts you've been on, but you were taking bread from the hotel rooms and like leaving it for the fairies and stuff.
Yeah, every bed and breakfast, they'd be like, "Oh, you really like your bread? You really like your toast?" I'm like, "Yeah, I love it. Keep it coming," because I didn't want to go into a fairy mound. Yeah, it's interesting. Here's a little something that I sort of so if you look at sort of the modern alien abduction mythos and the way that you have, the missing fetus syndrome, missing fetus phenomena.
Missing fetus phenomena?
What?
Yes, missing fetus phenomena. You're familiar with this, right?
Is that like when they think they're pregnant and then the baby disappears and aliens take the baby?
An abductee thinks that they're pregnant and that the baby disappears, and later they have memories of a harvest of some sort.
Right.
I think that there's a lot to unpack from just, again, let's take a look at something specific like that to alien abduction, and let's sort of unpack the meanings behind that and the connections behind that. It's interesting to me that two of the smells that people mention most often and associated with alien abduction, in addition to ozone, which sometimes appears, are hydrogen sulfide and cinnamon. Hydrogen sulfide can cause reproductive problems, including miscarriages. And cinnamon has a long-standing folk use as an abortifacient. So even though you don't find a lot of people being fed cinnamon, it's just sort of another little thread to pull on. The thing that I'm sort of wondering now is, if you look at the fairy faiths, a lot of times, like especially in the Cornish pixies, were not necessarily discrete entities, but they were the souls of children who had died unbaptized. And I actually found a letter to the editor, Flying Saucer Review, that was, I'm pretty sure it was Hal Puthoff from the Stanford Research Institute, who wrote in suggesting that, has anyone looked at the idea, the similarity between fetuses and aliens has long been noted. Has anybody looked into the idea that it's that somehow these are spirits trapped between worlds that are trying to sort of interface with our world, sort of, again, that same idea of like basically unbaptized babies coming back from the dead.
Would that be like purgatory almost?
Yeah. Well, it's definitely tied into the purgatory idea. It's like a syncretization. In the example of the Cornish pixies, it's a syncretization of earlier pagan beliefs and the baptism beliefs. So they don't go to purgatory; they go to fairyland.
Okay.
Interestingly enough, you'll find some literature that says when you die, there are 3 roads: one to heaven, one to hell, and one to fairyland. But the thing that I've been thinking about lately is, we assume that encounters with aliens, in inverted commas, causes miscarriages among abductees, but I kind of wonder now if miscarriages don't create encounters with these entities, to flip it on its head. Which, I think that there's an avenue to pursue there that I think might yield some interesting fruit.
Right. That is very interesting, man. Just the miscarriage causes that. That's
well, and I personally think like this is, because the angle that ufology and Forteana has been taking for so long has been, trying to, well, it's been based on assumptions. It's been based on assumptions about, it's based on assumptions that these are little green men in flying saucers, that Nessie's a relict, plesiosaur. But I think that a lot of those assumptions need to be questioned, and I think that a lot of the details that people are ignoring need to be questioned too.
Wow, man, what do you think of the whole tulpa thing? I know you love tulpas.
I'm on record on an episode of Radio Mysterioso from Paramania of like sticking my foot into my mouth so hard, being like, the only place that you hear about tulpas is in the Alexander David Neal literature. And actually, apparently, I was informed by Walter Bosley that it appears in Evans Wentz's translation of the Tibetan Book of the Dead, which I should know because Evans Wentz wrote like the seminal modern study on fairy lore. So I'm just completely embarrassed that I wasn't familiar with that aspect of his work. I think it's valid. I think that there's something that people aren't taking into account when you consider the fact that if we put so much intention into an idea, certainly we would be running around with, Katniss Everdeen on the streets and the Hulk and Luke Skywalker, which I think it's almost, but then again, you have stuff like the Philip experiment, which basically, proves the idea that, that tulpas can be created. Are you familiar with the Philip experiment? No, I'm not. It was a group of, I know I'm probably gonna get some dates wrong, but I believe it was in the early 20th century. It was a group interested in psychic phenomena that was wondering if they could fashion a ghost out of whole cloth. And so what they did is they got a group of people together and they created a backstory for this fictional ghost named Philip. And after a series of seances, this entity started coming through in various ways: table wrappings, the table would tip, automatic writing, etc. And it would come through, and there were a series of protocols that they had established. For example, I think some of the people that they brought in were not aware of the backstory, but still got information of this character named Philip with all the details that they had fashioned completely fictionally. So that sort of, to me, sort of opens and shuts the idea of like thought forms being a thing. But I think that we're missing something in terms of how the intention is sort of formulated around these things. What I mean by that is, like, again, if it was just about obsession, we would have a lot more fictional characters walking around the world.
Yeah.
I think it's more on an individual level and more of a focused discipline level rather than the fact that everybody's talking about Slender Man, so Slender Man now exists. I think that if one person is meditating on Slenderman. Hi, John Slenderman, attorney at law. Slenderman could possibly exist, but the idea that just because something is so prominent in the collective imagination, I don't think that necessarily means that a tulpa is just going to, pop up.
Right. I mean, that's just that's one that's always fascinated me. I mean, because that's something like you could almost chalk up to anything. Like, oh, it's just a tulpa. Like it's a tulpa. That's been the buzzword. Yes. Like on a purity.
Somebody could be a therefore tulpas person.
Yes.
I mean, I think it's David. Oh, geez, I'm gonna mess this up. It's either David Hatcher Childress or David Weatherly. And sorry, Davids, for me confusing you.
That's all right. Nobody listens to our show.
We have a couple.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's David Weatherly. Says is quick Google search. I'm pretty sure it's David Weatherly is putting together a book on tulpas, which I'm looking forward to because, again, like I do feel relatively comfortable saying outside of Alexander David Neal and the Evans Wentz translation and Reddit, boards. Mm-hmm. There's not a lot of, art. There's not a lot of literature on the tulpa. At least in like the ancient world, you don't find it. Mm-hmm. I've heard some people say that it's such a highly sophisticated form of meditation that's the reason that you don't hear about it. But
yeah,
I don't know.
That's mystery.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But it is super parsimonious in terms of explaining all this stuff.
Right.
So I think it remains valid.
Yeah, I like it. What got you into writing books? What made you want to even start writing books?
So let's dial this back. So I've always been like a monster kid. So not only interested in Forteana, but just into like, monster movies.
Right. Like the old Universal Studios monsters?
Yeah, some of that, but a lot of like,
Dracula. Yeah.
No, like Alien and Predator.
Okay. Right. Yep.
The Relic. You guys ever see The Relic?
No. I've heard of it, but I've never seen it.
Basically anything that came out of Stan Winston's studio. I was all over. Pumpkinhead, that sort of thing.
Okay.
But I also maintain, a passive interest in the unexplained, as it were. And everybody that I knew had always encouraged me to be a writer. The only person really that, obviously my family was supportive, but the only like mentor that I had that really said you should be a musician was my high school band director. But I showed an aptitude for that. And it was, a lot of it came easily. So I went with that as a career choice. And through a series of circumstances, I wound up, doing some freelancing, but also holding down a day job. And because that day job had an hour-long commute one way, and I was also like there was a lot of Photoshop involved. I was listening to podcasts, and I discovered Mysterious Universe, which was sort of like, the catalyst for this Renaissance period of my life. And it got its claws into me in a big way. So, around the same time, I got an Amazon gift card from my sister-in-law. And there was a book that I'd heard about, J. Robert Alley's Raincoast Sasquatch. And I'd heard that was a recommended book. And I'm like, I haven't bought a Bigfoot book in a while. I haven't read about Bigfoot. This is something that interests me. And I'll never forget reading a section that said that, in certain First Nations lore, the Bookwus, which is a term for a type of Sasquatch, might offer you food. But if you accepted the food of the Bookwus, you would be trapped with the Bookwus forever, perhaps even becoming the Bookwus.
Wow.
And that, having had a passive interest in or passive knowledge in the old fairy phenomena, old fairy lore, that really struck a chord with me. And I'm like, that would be really interesting. Somebody should write a book about that. And I waited a couple of weeks, and I waited a couple of months, and no one was writing a book about it. I'm like, well, let's just start putting some stuff together and see what happens. Because I mean, it's not a great career choice to do this, and like I still make, you know, I would say the lion's share, but that's sort of lowballing it. Like I make a vast majority of my money from playing tuba and teaching tuba and trombone and whatnot. But I put it together, and I you know, looking back on it, it almost has the timing of like a magic ritual, because my book came out, you know, a month before I put in my 2 weeks notice of my job.
Oh wow.
Not that I was expecting to make money off of it, but I was fed up with that, and this was a new me, and like I knew that, you know, I was working for the University of Georgia, and I knew that like.
How old were you when this happened?
Shit. Okay, so it's 2017 now. So it was 2 years ago. So I was 30 years old.
Okay, dude. Yeah, it's Saturn's return. It's turning 30. I swear, it's like so much shit. Because I'm 32. Yeah, I'm 32 right now, and it was like 2-3 years ago. That's when like I just started getting into this, and everything just kind of flipped for me. So I think it's it's crazy.
It really did lock in place. I mean, So I have a master's in music and a master's in journalism, and I was sort of being like, you know, the idea that, you know, talk about jumping from one sinking ship to another in terms of career choices. But I was doing public relations for the School of Music at UGA, and I was just the 9 to 5 thing. I'm too, you know, to borrow a phrase from Jeff Ritzman, anti-structural for that, I guess.
Yeah.
And just, you know, the environment and like academia, you know, they talk about never watch how sausage is made. I mean, that's never been truer than in academia. I mean, you know, it's like, you know, it's like preschool with more neckties. So yeah, I mean, this sort of coincided, and since then, it really is one of those. You hear a bunch of people say platitudes about, you know, just going for what you really want to be doing, but you know, now I'm making more money and working maybe 2/3 of the time that I was at UGA, just doing music stuff, and you know, with the yearly check from Anomalist, which, you know, will buy you know, groceries for a month. That's about it. But you know, it's not about that. It's really about like my own personal search and you know, getting to talk to people like you guys and getting to ask questions and sort of, you know, to me, it's sort of also being about being on the right side of history. I mean, like, and I think that people who are interested in these things and believe that there is an objective reality to them, sort of are. I mean, you know, materialism is on its way out in a big way.
Oh yeah, nuts and bolts, all that. It's done, definitely.
Well, and the ironic thing is that the materialists aren't realizing that they're saying things like this, this article that just came out yesterday about what was it? It was that the universe shouldn't exist but does.
Oh yes, CERN. Yeah, I remember reading that. That's insane.
Yeah, according to the CERN physicists, and it's like that's like the weirdest, most Gnostic thing I've heard come out of science in a long time. But you know, you always have that one science friend who is really into quantum physics. I have a friend who's one of the groomsmen in my wedding, who's getting ready to have an interview at JPL. And I'm sure that like every time I post anything like that with some sort of like snarky metaphysical bent, like he's always the first one to like mansplain materialism to me. You know, well, this doesn't mean what you think it means. I'm like, well, then this is a really strange way of putting it.
Yeah.
You know,
I think they both exist at the same time. You know, like.
I mean, I think it's a many hands on the elephant thing. You know, I think religion is the fairy faith and science is ufology. I think it's the same thing. They're both trying to describe the same thing, and I think they're both kind of getting it wrong to a certain degree. But I think that they're both describing something that's objective.
That could be, yeah.
But it's just funny to me to hear these like things coming out of the scientific establishment, and for them to not realize how like each one sounds like it came out of a fortune cookie or something. You know, these particles don't exist. The current state of these particles are defined by the way that we observe them in the future. Okay, that makes complete sense.
Like they're talking about if you observe, is it a light particle or was it matter particle? Like it's the observer effect.
It's a photon. Yeah.
A photon, right?
Yeah, and depending on the way that depending on the circumstances around the observation of it, it either appears as a light or as a wave or a particle.
Yeah.
It's
both.
Well, I mean, it doesn't. I mean, saying something like that, you would think would have big implications for the scientific method, right? But,
I know.
But they carry on like it doesn't.
Yeah, that's the tough part with a lot of, the I want to say, the you get the open mind and the closed mind, so.
Well, they're just so stuck in their narrative, like you go to school for so many years and you have people writing papers and it's like.
You get the DR on front of your name, man.
Yeah. I mean, or even worse, the FUD, PhD.
Yes.
I mean, there's a lot to lose, but at the same time, I think that they're being sort of closed-minded and that I understand, yes, there's a lot to lose because even the people who are qualified who come out.
People should take that leap.
Yeah, they get taken down a peg really quickly. But that's the one thing in sort of the realm of the unexplained that I get actually defensive about is the existence of psi phenomena, because for me it's just, if you look at the work of Daryl Bem and Dean Radin and Rupert Sheldrake, this is open and closed. This is open and shut. And these are all people who are very, very well qualified to be talking about these sort of things. And it's the one thing that, and again, sort of some stuff like the Philip experiment. If you avail yourself of the knowledge, it's almost completely proven in a laboratory setting, which is astounding because these things don't lend themselves to be, examined in a laboratory setting.
You can never recreate them or peer reviewed or anything. I mean, it's just like it just happens.
Yeah,
you get lucky.
There was a blog from Gordon White who I like to name drop a lot because he's really been formative in a lot of my recent views. But he made mention that you don't measure tides in a bathtub, and you don't measure the performance of your star quarterback in a gym. You can't do that.
No,
that's not where these things take place. And I think that the lack of the lack of a willingness to admit that is really holding science back. But I mean, it's going to be it won't be long before they really start to embrace a lot of the ideas that people like us talk about right now. They're just going to address them in different ways, and they're going to they're going to shove them into materialism, and then they're going to be like, well, this is kind of wrong, but all this other stuff was, well, they're not laws of the universe. They're very, very, very strong guidelines. They're still very, very strong.
Right.
So,
going back to the whole nuts and bolts thing, you contributed to the Robbie Graham UFOs Reframing the Debate, right? I mean, I think that's going to be dude, that's a great book just for changing everything around. Like, definitely.
Yeah, I don't know what the hell I'm doing there.
Come on, don't be so humble, Josh. You deserve a spot there.
Some of these essays I'm reading, like, wow, this is way above my pay grade. It's a great book because I haven't found anybody who agrees with every single essay.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really nice cross section that gets people mad. And I think it's good. I've seen some people who are saying that it's just a bunch of navel gazing, but but the problem is that if you look at mainstream ufology right now, I mean that's part of the problem is that we don't have any introspection. We're taking things at face value. Hence, blue avians and
Corey Good just needs to disappear. That's
yeah,
and that's such a ridiculous thing. I mean, who knows though? Who knows? It might be true. Who knows? I can't. But I don't think it is.
I mean, it might be true, but
the idea in his head might be true.
Yeah, he might believe it's true. Yeah, he might. That's what I think. He's like MK Ultra or brainwashed or something.
I suspect he probably believes it's true. It's amazing to me. There was somebody else that I was hearing that I don't want to tell tales out of school, but it's my understanding that I have heard from a third party that there was a very prominent UFO researcher who, at Contact in the Desert, said that World War II was a proxy war between reptilians and Nordics.
Oh God!
Which is like, now we're beyond absurd. It's absurd and offensive. Like, was the reptilians killing the Jews? Got it. Okay. Well, I thought the reptilians were the Jews.
Do you think these people were just placed in there just to completely discredit like all parts of ufology? Like, let's just get the most batshit crazy people out there just talking nonsense.
You know, Greg Bishop, good friend of mine, has this phrase that I think he borrowed from I can't remember. I think he might have borrowed it from Bill Moore. But it's that the UFO community does not know, is not telling the government what they know about UFOs. And I think you can sort of flip that on its head. Maybe he's even said this. Like, I think that the UFO community does a great job of doing its own disinformation campaign.
No doubt.
So, which is why, like, it's one of the reasons that I have looked to the past to try to find answers, because there's so much noise nowadays.
Yeah,
that's the only credible stuff that I've could ever even think about looking at is. But at the same time, I mean, that's selective too, like Blue Book, shit like that. You know, like I mean that was a program that existed at one point in time.
Yeah, the Condon report and everything.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's was it I think I posted this too. It was retweeted from Grimerica, but I was talking about how, it was the new Adobe reveal of what they can do with photos and with video. They're saying, this is why video and photo evidence doesn't mean anything. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking to myself, and if this is consumer grade right now,
they've had it forever.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
They did it. They have one with the voice too. They have Google. They have Adobe Voice. They have Adobe Voice.
Wow.
And video where they could transfer your face like on shit.
It's
the voice shit's crazy.
It's horrifying.
Yeah.
And have you guys seen? There was another company that could take a mocap helmet of your face and graft what you're saying onto a public figure's face. I think they did an example with George W. Bush, and it looked a little bit, like de-aged Kurt Russell in Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Like, it wasn't quite perfect. But if you combine that with the Adobe technology, or heck, even impersonation, impersonation expert, you know what I'm saying? Like Rich Little. You remember Rich Little? Anybody? Or Rich Little? Rich Little was a master mimic guy. He was an impressionist. That's the word.
Impressionist. Okay.
If you can just combine, just that's I guess it's the analog version of that. It's pretty lo-fi. You could have, it's astounding where technology is right now. And again, like we said, if it's that way now, it's been that way for a while.
Yep. Yeah. That's why if there's ever some sort of alien invasion, I'm not even gonna believe it. It's like I'm just instantly gonna think this is a hoax. Like, what are they doing here?
Well, I think that to a certain degree, that might be what's happening with the conspiracy field and their constant knee-jerk reaction of false flag.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's absurd to say that everything is false flag, but I kind of understand where they're coming from.
Yeah.
I do think that the Vegas shooting sounds fishy.
Oh, there's so much crap that's just crazy.
So much weirdness about that. At the same time, I don't think Sandy Hook sounds fishy at all. I think it just sounds tragic.
Yeah, I can't get on board with Sandy Hook, and like so many people are all about it, and I'm like, no, like, whatever happened, even if because with an actual false flag, you need to have a blame on somebody, and there's legislation like 9/11 instituted the Patriot Act. Like that was an inside job. I'm
There was
convinced with
actual
that.
fallout from it.
Yes.
Yeah.
But like Sandy Hook, there was nothing that came of it. There wasn't any tighter gun control. There wasn't anything. So it was just like when there's legislation behind an event, that's when I'm skeptical of it. But if I don't know, bunch of kids dying, I don't even. It's not
unless they're
worth it.
trying to build some sort of critical mass, maybe. But
Yeah.
even that, there's not a clear line of cause and effect. You know,
Mhm.
if these are all false flags, they're the worst false flags.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, the most ineffectual. Well, that didn't work, Bob. What are we going to try now? Well, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Exactly.
Kids next time. Let's do. Let's
Yeah.
shoot up. You know.
And then they're
Talking
releasing
about,
they're releasing the JFK papers tomorrow. So,
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
which I don't think anything's going to come out of that. It's just going to be thousands of pages of stuff that we already know. Or
I think something's going to come out of it, but I think it's going to be something that I think it's going to be some sort of tiny little. It's not no smoking gun, no sort of like
like H.W. George
obvious.
H.W. did it. Yeah.
yeah, nothing obvious like that. But I think there might be a couple little clues that some sort of obsessively minded conspiracy theorist might be able to pick out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Might.
Oh yeah, they'll be picking up.
Dude, Reddit will be, or not Reddit, but 4chan will be all over it. They'll let us know.
But it's interesting. I had the opportunity to go to the JFK Museum in Dallas, and it does have that whiff of "the lady doth protest too much." You know what I mean? I mean, if you look at where the actual shooting took place, it's completely conceivable that it's one
That's what I've heard from a lot of people who have been there.
Yeah. I mean, and just getting a sense, just going there to get a sense of the geography is helpful. But at the same time, like Vegas in a lot of ways, there's just so many shenanigans that it doesn't.
Shenanigans.
I was gonna say, with that in mind, like you were talking about the video stuff. So, you know how you used to go on and you just be in awe and loved looking up like old, ufology like type videos back in the day, 10 years ago, 12 years. Shit, it goes for me. It goes all the way back to, I guess, when it first started YouTube. Basically, I mean, you would.
Oh yeah, I mean,
but so being fake. They leave that shit up, but then any real thought put into what's going on, like within Vegas, that shit.
Yeah, they're taking a lot of those videos down. So I don't know what's up with that.
I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, dude, they're taking it all off there. But people like us that are looking for these clues or whatever, we save these videos and throw them right back up, and they just keep. It's like a cycle, but like.
Yeah.
So if you can save the original content, when you see something like that, make sure you save it, people.
There's been an interesting clampdown in general of free speech on social media that I find disconcerting.
It's crazy.
Doesn't Twitter have some sort of like advisory board or like some sort of?
Oh yeah, they're cracking down on their terms of services or whatever it is, where they'll suspend you if they think that you're putting up crap. But honestly, Twitter, I feel, is just it's still wild. It's still the Wild West. You could pretty much tweet anything out there.
It's still pretty wild, but I think YouTube has started taking down Jordan Peterson's videos.
That's fucked up.
That's ridiculous because I mean, he's not even. I don't know. He's controversial, but it's nothing
he's not
terrible.
incendiary.
Yes.
Because they're inciting riots everywhere he goes.
He's inciting riots in the same way that my dog. He's inciting riots in the same way that my dog is inciting. I can't even come up with a good analogy.
Yeah, I know.
We know what you're trying to say, though.
He's inciting riots, but he's not provoking the riots. In other words, him saying.
Oh no, yeah, not at all.
It's because it's the problem is with the people hearing it not being able to address their own cognitive dissonance in their lives, and the fact that they have to suppress this alternative viewpoint.
Oh man, it's tough. I mean, I have 2 kids, it's like, I got to imagine what they got to go through as they get older too. And then you see that what these kids that are in school right now, like I say high school and college and stuff, and like just the mentality of them. Yeah, I think I was listening to Tinfoil Hat podcast. Sam Tripoli said it best. He's like, all you motherfuckers should go have to work at Denny's for 2 years and then go to go get a real job.
Yeah, because you don't know how hard life is till you work a shitty job.
Is, bro.
Yes.
Yeah.
The amazing thing to me is like the thing is because I'm gonna probably have kids with my wife soon in the next year or so.
Nice.
And the thing that terrifies me is like how do you walk the line between them not being a dick, because if someone identifies with a non-binary pronoun, I want to treat them like a human being.
Man.
But how do you instill that into them as a child while also giving them the critical capacity to go, this is kind of,
yeah,
I don't even feel comfortable saying silly because I'm not living that experience.
Yeah.
But
I tell my kid, I mean, he doesn't see it. You're a guy or a girl. It's plain and simple. Other than that, I mean, my youngest son, he's 5, dude. So it's like he don't care what the hell's going on.
I almost feel like if like social media and everything is just making this out to be so much more of a bigger deal than what it is. It's like when I go through like in my day-to-day life, I don't see anything like that you see in the media. Like I don't see any of it. People are just normal.
Because I believe that a majority of people, they're either commerce based, so they don't care as long as your money is green, or they're actually treating people like people, which is what I think we're really getting at. That's what if everybody did that, the world would be a better place.
That's
eye contact. Nobody makes eye contact. Nobody talks to each other anymore. That's what it's all about.
I feel bad because I'm not even making eye contact with the camera anymore.
It's okay. It's all right.
No, I do the same thing with the kids, man. I just want to make sure they're
just be a good person.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it's pretty fucking easy to do. I don't know. Like respect you. Yeah. I mean,
that's encouraging. That's encouraging to me.
I definitely. I mean, I'm a pretty easygoing person, so it doesn't. I mean, I have my moments for sure when you're raising kids, dude.
It reminds me of that tired old Christian adage, which I am a Christian, and I think that there's some value in it.
Oh, there's definitely, dude. Yeah.
Which is hate the sin, love the sinner. If you want to talk to me about my opinions on the way that I feel about something of your own, or that you're doing, or a view that you have, I might have opinions on it. But when it comes down to treating you right, when it comes down to seeing you bleeding out on the floor, I'm gonna call 911.
I'm gonna walk by with my face in my phone.
Nope.
It's interesting.
That's a good thing too. You talk about like growing up that way. I was same thing too. I grew up Catholic. I went to church on Sundays. I did PSR. And then once I did my first communion, I would have been I don't know, 8 or something, and like, and my parents were just, you guys, me and my brother or whatever, do you guys want to keep going? And we were like, nah. So we never went back, man. And like, my brain and the Wayback Machine, they probably don't, they're not on the same wavelength. But as far as me growing up, I probably, like a lot of kids, were just like annoyed by going to it.
Yeah, you'd go on a Sunday morning.
But ingrained in your psyche, those few common basic laws of just
being a decent person.
I hate going to the gym, and I often dread going to church, but it doesn't mean I don't feel better after both of them.
Right.
So, but again, I think it's this idea of I think people, let the package hide the pudding, and they get wrapped up in a bunch of dogma, and they get wrapped up in a bunch of just nonsense.
One path, man.
What scares me is when people start taking like religious books as literal, like the creationists and other things like that's.
Yeah.
Like Ken Ham isn't doing anybody any favors. That's for sure.
Well, it's illogical and it's ahistorical.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't, and it's not realistic. And the evangelical line that is towed regarding that is that, well, God's God guided the hands of the translators to get his true intention across. But to me, like, I can see it just as potent to suggest that an omnipotent creator imbued these folk myths with a meaning and a possible interpretation that transcends the time and the culture that they were written in, for the most part. Obviously stuff like Leviticus is like, thou shalt wash thy hands. But, I find it much more compelling that it's not literal and that it's something that is so fundamental to every phase of human culture that it can be relatable. I find that to be a lot more interesting than the fact that there was literally an ark with literally 2 of every animal from literally every continent.
Yeah.
What kind of like hope would you like to see like in the future, man? Like what a kick-ass version of
Is it hope or Pope?
Hope.
What sort of hope would I like to see in the future?
Yeah. That's an interesting question.
I think we're on the right track, honestly. I think that because as much as, and this isn't meaning to offend anybody, but as much as the humanist atheists want to say that materialism inspires compassion, it can, but I don't think it does. I don't think it inspires compassion as strongly as people who get religion right, if that makes sense.
Right.
So I think that the impending downfall of materialism is going to help that in a lot of ways. I think that the very obvious magical revival that we're seeing is going to happen.
Oh yeah.
If you look at the amount of people who are interested in
the occult, just Wicca and everything. Yeah.
People would say New Age, and like some of it does have New Age trappings, but a lot of people are really going back into some deeper traditions and traditions with some deeper roots. So I think
some
the
Solomonic magic and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you look at the way that, and I'm stealing stuff from Gordon White, but that's whatever. If you look at the way that the spirit world is acting these days, we have like the past 2 years have seen an incredible amount of ancient magical texts being unearthed, ancient magical inscriptions being unearthed.
The grimoires.
It's almost like it's
mummified aliens.
Yeah, and also like if you look at the world of the plant allies, Mother Ayahuasca is on a mad tear through society.
Mm-hmm. I was just going to mention.
I almost did my Terrence McKenna there. Mother Ayahuasca.
There it is.
I was going to mention like old school medicine, like these natural things that were locked away by big pharma, that was pushed by the Rothschilds to start a hospital system.
My wife sees a naturopath that's helped her with medical issues no doctor could, and these ideas that would have been at best anathema, 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah,
I could probably find somebody in my neighborhood right now that's heard of ayahuasca.
Mm-hmm.
The attitudes towards the legalization of marijuana have changed in a great way, and I think that that's a good thing, whether or not you use or not.
Yeah.
So I think that things are on the right track, honestly.
Right.
What I think the biggest problem is that we have to I think the youngest generation, I would say millennials, but because we're millennials, I guess, we're at the very beginning of that generation.
We were Generation Y. It used to be Generation Y.
Yeah, right.
I'm X.
So what's the next?
Yeah, you're a Gen Xer, James.
Yeah, dude, I'll be 40.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, what's the next generation after me?
I don't know. I don't think they've even labeled it.
Sub-millennials,
Sub-millennials, maybe?
I think that they have bought so hard into the dystopia they're being sold that that's part of the reason that they're shutting down.
Yeah.
And that they're
going for free.
They're going inward and they're going narcissistic and they're going into their little cyberspace.
Oh yeah. And then when you have guys like Dawkins preaching the whole materialist everything, it's like, because dude, I was a huge atheist like in my early 20s and stuff. Like I didn't believe in anything, and then it's just like within the last 5 years, like I wouldn't say I've gone back into like any sort of structured religion. Like I hate saying spiritual because that just sounds gay, but it's almost how it is. I'm spiritual.
Like you're just looking for Well, it sounds like you've got your channeling hat on and you're
but there's definitely something out there. Definitely.
Yeah, it's this. I mean, I put Dawkins on the same spectrum as I do, Pat Robertson. It's on the completely other end. People who are so tied to their ideas that they're not willing to at least see the validity of the arguments of the other side.
Right.
And I think that, I mean, of course, if you're being sold a bill of goods that he who dies with the most toys wins, and your only real
It's gonna be a pretty sad life, dude.
Yeah. Your only shot at immortality is to, pass on your genes to your kids. I mean, I would just shut down and want to play video games all day. I mean, don't get me wrong. I played video games all day today because I've got a 12-hour day coming up tomorrow.
Nice.
But like, I would shut down and turn inward to living my life through a social media network, to being, tethered at the hip to my device. I guess what I'm getting at is I think that the climate is going in the right direction, but I think that we need to make sure that the younger generation understands that, because I can see them getting caught up in the way that things are now, and just in letting this sort of momentum die out, if that makes sense.
Right. Well, that's almost like you always. It seems like you always rebel against your parents. So, like, let's say our generation, we're all about, like, not, or like ufology or whatever, just being more spiritual. Like, are they going to look at that and be like, that's lame, and then have something completely different? Like, it's just no trends ever stay in effect. It almost seems like it's a generational thing. So
I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, I've been seeing this article kicked around social media about more millennials turning towards.
Witchcraft. I saw that too. Yeah, that was.
And I think that is. I mean, I think that's part of this. I would imagine. Cycle. Paganism to restrictive Orthodox religion to atheism, and then a reaction of that is going to be basically going back to paganism in a lot of ways.
Well, that's just with the access that everybody has, like, to history, and just with the internet, you could look up anything, and once you find, like, the Christian roots come from paganism, like Christmas is a pagan holiday. Like, it's just, it's, you look and it's like, well, if this is what it originated from, why not go back to the original? Like,
I love unpacking the pagan, the pagan trappings of Christmas. Like, it's so.
Decorating a tree, exchanging gifts.
The secularized version is pagan, I guess I should say. Although the church calendar definitely wanted to, they wanted to time it so that it wouldn't be noticed amongst the pagan festivals.
Well, yeah.
And look, it's look, Easter is a fertility festival, but not really rebirth, fertility. But in a lot of ways, to me, that's archetypally profound in a way that I think that just a straight reading of the text isn't. It can be all these things and none of these things at the same time, I guess. It reminds me of I've trotted out this quote quite often by Patrick Harper, who wrote Demonic Reality, which is hands down one of the top I wouldn't say top 5, but probably top 3. Daimonic, DAIMONIC reality. One of the top 5 unexplained Fortean books that I've ever read. It takes a while to get through because it's dense, but it's so spot on. And one of the things that he says is that, there are texts that can be true, that can be the truest things you've ever read, but they are not literally true. And, that's a lot of the way that I view, coming back to what we were talking about earlier, like a lot, religious texts in the Christian tradition, is that, you can watch a movie that is a love story, and it can hit a lot of profound beats and express a lot of profound truths, and can be the truest relationship that you've seen in terms of the way that it encompasses all the things that you go through. But is it literally true? Did these two people exist and fall in love? No, they didn't. But symbolism. At the same time, it's symbolism that works at a level of truth that we don't appreciate anymore, I don't think.
Yeah. Yeah, very cool. I'm gonna have to check that book out.
It's great. The other great quote from it that I love, because he does some comparisons between everything and everything, but he does some comparisons between the Fae folk and the aliens. And the thing that he always says, so it's a motif in like fairy lore that the fairies are always, there's always an exodus of the fairies. The fairies are always leaving. Like people tend to see the fairies leaving as early back as the Canterbury Tales. Like there was mentioned that the fairies were leaving the British Isles. The fairies are being driven out by technology, by religion, by this, by that, by globalization.
I like your theory on how the fairy lore has traveled, withstood the test of the time. So like when we were just talking about how ufology has been around since the
70 years since Roswell.
Yeah. Right, and it's gonna die out, the nuts and bolts part of it, which was probably a lot to do with the Germans and the Vril and all them, looking for all that crazy shit and building flying saucers and
I think it's part of the problem is that people want to slap one answer on the UFO thing, and it's probably a lot of things, and it's probably a lot of things that have changed through time.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I think that the Nazi thing, the Nazi Bell thing, I think that all has a lot of stuff going for it. I think today, like probably, I've said 99% in the past, but I'm feeling more charitable. 3/4 of things that we see are either natural phenomena or unorthodox aircraft or secret aircraft.
Oh yeah,
there's a percentage that's anomalous.
Tom DeLonge.
I think that's but the idea of this recontextualization is sort of what Patrick Harper. One of my favorite Patrick Harper quotes is that he says the fairies are always going, but never gone, and the aliens are always coming, but never here.
Yes, it's great.
So that book is chock full of insightful things like that. But oh man, are we going to talk about DeLong?
No, let's do it. Let's see. He's going to be on Joe Rogan this week, I think.
The long to short of it, yeah.
I have a really
it's a bad name to have when you're starting up to the Stars Academy. It sounds lame, dude.
The Stars Academy of Arts and Sciences. Montessori school. It sounds like a Montessori school.
It does. Yes. Get graded with smiley faces.
It sounds like a girls' tap dance place or something. I don't know.
It sounds like a what?
Like a girls' tap dance studio.
To the stars.
To the stars.
It really does.
What are your thoughts on him?
I think it's.
Think he's getting Benowitzed?
I think that he might be getting Benowitzed, but I think it's being done in a much more sophisticated way, which I would expect. Because if Benowitz could have, if Benowitz had the internet, I'm sure the whole thing that Greg describes in Project Beta would have gone down a lot differently, or had today's internet, maybe I should say.
Yeah.
But I suspect that he's being used to an end, and I don't think he knows. And here's the thing, man. A lot of people have said this. He's assembled a crackerjack team.
Yep.
I mean, it's a lot of people that know their thing, but it's also, was Chris O'Brien on the Paracast once said, once a spook, always spooky.
Yep.
And I
it's all CIA guys.
It's here. Let me try to come up with another metaphor. It's like the leopard wants to talk to you about life back in Africa, and his entire team's made up of zookeepers. It's like it doesn't make any sense,
Back home.
Yeah, exactly. The leopard that's been captive for his entire life.
I like the fact that his whole bullshit thing was like, we're never gonna have enough money to do what we want to do. Then why the fuck are you even starting this whole company? So if you want, look at DeLong versus Musk right there. It's over, dude. So it's like,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so if you want to get to the stars, hop a ride with the dude that's got fucking 50 of them rockets already.
Yeah. At the same time, like I think something good is going to come out of this. I just honestly, I kind of don't know what to make of it.
Yeah.
I can't dismiss it because of the people that are involved. I can't dismiss it because I have a feeling that there is a longitudinal component to what they're going to be rolling out. But at the same time, it's just being presented in such a goofy way, and like the goals, maybe that's the real red flag. like the goals are inachievable with the sort of funding that they have. So what is this project? Is this project a front? Like is this laundering for something else?
It's possible.
I have a feeling like we're gonna get some good web series or something out of it.
I was gonna say like maybe some cool, like obviously there's gonna be some production value involved, mainly involved here, and maybe they have grandiose ideas to try to make even more fucking money, like really badass promotional videos, basically. Like, let's build this. We need this amount of money.
Well, I just heard on
let's develop this anti-grav drive or whatever.
Yeah, it's so pie in the sky. And I heard that I just heard on Mysterious Universe that like Tom DeLonge's fee that he's charging for this to have his name attached, which boggles my mind. If he's the one driving it, like, why do you care about? If you're the one driving it and you are somebody who has that sort of wealth already, why do you care about this?
Yeah,
he's charging $100,000 a year to keep his name attached.
Yeah, that's in his contract. It says that. Yep, that's crazy.
I thought it was like $250.
And you're expecting, to take that chunk out of it every year and still have enough to create technology that is borderline, if not completely hypothetical.
Yeah.
And it's like, what he won like ufologist of the year at the UFO Congress, was it, or something? Or
don't get me started.
Like that's ridiculous. Like
I could have listed you about well, maybe not 150, but I could list you 50 other people that are more qualified than him. Even now that his big announcement is out, because I feel like that was sort of a shifting goal too, right? Like it was rumored to be disclosure, but like the rollout date kept on getting pushed back.
Oh yeah, it was supposed to be back at the beginning of the year. Yep,
happened. I
had this whole theory that he's working with Podesta or something, because like it was supposed to get released at the beginning of the year, and he was talking pre-election, so like Hillary lost. And then he went on this rant for like a month about how Trump's going to get impeached, like on Twitter and everything. He was going like, do this, like just following all this shit, trying to get Trump out of there. And then he just goes dark for like another 5 months. And then this comes out. So it's like, he's got people talking in his ear, I can't make sense of any of it. The dude's just off the rails.
It's almost like, I feel like the announcement set up diminishing returns, right? It's coming in a month. It's coming in 6 months. Okay, well, finally, we're going to hear about it now.
Yeah.
And the type of announcement was, it's going to be, it's going to be life changing. It's going to be kind of disclosure-y. It's going to release some facts. Oh, it's a month.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like the same thing's going to happen. We're going to do anti-gravity. We're going to, we're maybe going to
make this thing, this little picture.
It's going to be, a web series. I feel like it's constant, like over-promising and under-delivering.
I remember the first interview I heard of him talking about this on Jimmy Church's show.
Yeah, he was on Fade to Black a long time ago.
So I'm listening to that dude, and he has Tom DeLonge driving around in his BMW or whatever, like he's evading the Men in Black like the whole time, dude. I was rolling. I was like, this is fucked up, dude.
So
such a scam. This is so much bullshit.
Yeah. Well, it's coming back to the cosplay thing. It's like he's playing Mulder. He's doing his little Mulder lifestyle. I think so far it's been over promising and under delivering, both in terms of revelation, in terms of what the project is, in terms of the release date. And I think that's the same thing now. It's over promising and it's going to under deliver.
Yep.
Now, having said that, there's a researcher that I respect, that I'm friends with on social media, that I've spoken with, that keeps on saying that there's going to be something profound to come out of this. But as much as I admire the guy's opinion,
I think the calm before the storm, dude.
It comes off as more of a faith-based thing or something. I don't know. And he's finding all these like little tiny tidbits here and there.
He did mention something about it's more like, it's more about that. I think, like, I remember when he was doing that interview, how it's going to be more. It's not about disclosure. It's about like everything you believe is going to be different or some bullshit, like believe in, not that it's a nuts and bolts thing. It's like something way beyond that. Which
no,
yeah,
you bring up a really good point, because I think he's not on the nuts and bolts track.
Well, he was like Jacques Vallée was supposed to do his forward or something, wasn't it? Or like he was supposed to be involved in some way, and I think he backed out. But just that right there.
That's my understanding as well.
He didn't want to have his name tied to it.
It's my understanding that it's been a pretty significant distancing from the project with regards to him. But the fact that Peter Levenda was involved with sort of this project from the beginning, and that's somebody that wouldn't toe a nuts and bolts line in regards to UFOs either. No. So I think that the thing that I'm going to find frustrating is if he comes out and says, well, first of all, if he comes out with some sort of pseudo occult explanation for UFOs, everyone who's paying attention to him that hasn't been paying attention to the rest of ufology is going to laugh their asses off.
Right.
We think that's not far-fetched. And besides the fact it's frustrating that he would be listened to when the rest of us have been saying, this kind of has some sort of occulty thing going on, and we've been, haven't been listened to, but nobody's going to swallow that. Nobody's going to swallow that. The extraterrestrial hypothesis is too well ingrained in the public consciousness. For any,
you got guys like Stanton Friedman who have been just pounding it down people's throats for the past 40 years.
Yeah, Uncle Stan, man, I admire the hell out of the guy, but I don't know if he's ever cracked up in a grimoire, which I think that's totally, where if you look at somebody like Vallée, I believe, is a Rosicrucian, I believe, and has a pretty extensive library of occulty things. The stuff that I'm doing now was talked about Vallée, back with Passport to Magonia, which is just a seminal book that everybody should read. The similarities between wizards that lived in the sky and fairies and UFOs. So Vallée is somebody who I think has aged incredibly well, and I think if there ever is a day where we figure out what's going on, I think he's probably going to be the one that's been the closest to the mark in terms of
definitely
in terms of trying to guess what this is all about.
All consciousness, we control it with our minds.
I think it's
that's like Grant Cameron's coming out now talking about that. Grant Cameron's kind of switching, like with his new what's his new book that he just came out with? I can't remember it, but yeah, it all has to do with consciousness. Charlie Red Star.
This is probably not going to make me any fans, but you know what? I'm trying to give you exclusive content. So I again, somebody that I admire. I admire Grant Cameron. He's done some good work. But I remember when Bernie Sanders was, in the news quite a bit. And Grant Cameron was on, I believe, I don't know, I want to say it was Where Did the Road Go? But he was talking about how, usually candidates get asked UFO questions. And
because they have the doc that was released or whatever.
Well, just because everybody wants to know that if you're elected, like, are you going to talk about UFOs, right?
Yeah.
And he said, and Grant made a point to say, in the Vermont State House, there's a painting of former Governor James Harkness, and you can see clearly in the background. You can see clearly in the background that there's some sort of saucer-shaped object in this painting that's in the Vermont State House. And, of the former Vermont governor. We need to ask Bernie Sanders what that is. And I was like, really? And I jumped on a search engine, namely Google, and I typed in Vermont State House painting UFO. And you know what I found out in 60 seconds? The object in the background, the disc-shaped object, is a type of telescope.
A 60-second Google discredited that.
Yeah, and I'm like, come on, man! Like, this is not like. And look, I probably misspoken about 100 different times on this podcast already, but like, that just seems like, yeah. If your shtick is, if this is your if this is one of your talking points, like you should maybe say, it's interesting that, it looks like this. I haven't had a chance to look into this yet, but, because whenever I don't know something, I at least try to couch it. Like, I'm probably getting some of this wrong, but this is as much as I remember.
Right.
But like, well, they need to ask you about this, this object in the background. No, they don't, because it's a telescope.
What is
this out?
Yeah.
There are articles on this particular type of. I mean, it looks weird. But like the level of gullibility that they would paint a UFO in the background of a governor's portrait hanging in the state house.
Yeah.
And B, just like the lack of effort that goes into looking into that really shocked me. So when Grant Cameron says some stuff, I kind of go into this mode of like 60-40. It's got some basis. I can't go much farther than that.
Yeah, he's one of those guys, though, that can put out so much. He can just say so much information in like a 10-minute span that you don't even have a chance to absorb it. You're just like picking out little gems because he's just a mile a minute going.
I got accused on YouTube of dominating 99% of the roundtables that I'm on Where Did the Road Go? And I'm like,
that's not true. I've listened to all of them.
I think I haven't been talking enough on Where Did the Road Go? If I'm a featured guest, I'm gonna make it a point to talk a lot. But
I actually remember a specific one where I'm pretty sure Soraya said, "Josh, you got anything to say? You haven't said much."
A couple of times, because it's that I'm so tired. It's like he's like, Josh, Josh, you have anything to say? If it's a subject that I've come up with to talk about, then I'm gonna have a lot of stuff to say about it. But sometimes it's like, let's talk about the apocalypse, and I'm like. I'm glad to be here, but when you got some of those other guys that are such heavy hitters, it's you don't want to talk over them.
Yeah, that's how I feel with every single person. Just you got more knowledge than me. Just shut up and let you go.
Yeah, man. I was expecting to hear you talk more in Soraya's interview.
Oh man, no, that was a good show. Soraya's great. He's a good guy. I'd like to do it again. I want to have a good round table. Get him, maybe Adam Sane, a couple other people. Ren, you. Just have a big fucking shit show. That's all I want. Everybody's screaming over each other. Yes.
Go ahead and get 50 people.
We'll do it. We'll do it live on YouTube.
Oh, we could do that. That'd be awesome. Maybe like a holiday show or something.
Yes. There's a hand raise function on this software.
There is. Yes, there is.
Yeah, totally. Let's do it. I think let's take a subject like UFOs. Are they real? It reminds me of a Congress, not Congress in the desert.
Contact in the desert.
Contact. I don't want to say conflict in the desert, which is
conflict. Yes.
Which is what Chris O'Brien calls it. And I meant to say contact in the desert earlier in regards to that World War II proxy war thing. I don't know if I mentioned that's where I'd heard about that.
No, yeah, you did.
But okay. It reminds me of a Contact in the Desert panel, I think it was, that was a couple years ago. That's like, why is the government secret? It's like,
oh yeah,
the government, that monolith where everybody gets along and everybody has the same agenda. The government, why is it secret? Well,
it's like,
why are parts of the government secretive? That's the thing about ufology. Like, just act like you have some sort of education and that you are an adult, please. Like for once,
Man. So, there's one question about Ireland. Oh yeah, fairy mounds. I heard you talking about these fairy mounds. What are those?
Well, they're these either Neolithic or early Christian structures. Basically, it's the simplest way to put it.
So are they human built or like man built?
Yeah, definitely human built. Unambiguously human built. Sometimes they're ring forts, so they're like. Sometimes they're mounds, sometimes they're hills, which usually means that they're burial mounds, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they're forts. Ring forts are usually an earthen ring with a trench and then an inner mound, or they're stone forts, which are the sort of stacked stone that you see everywhere in Ireland. In terms of, and they're often in like sort of concentric circles as well. But they're unambiguously human, which is one of the things that like. I kind of knew, but like to see them in person, it's like, yeah, I mean, this is a human structure, which again raises that question of like, well, why has it become so associated with mythology, and what does that say about fairy lore? Are these just like are these just ancient haunted houses? Which is kind of with coming back to that psychopomp idea. I think that's kind of what they were getting at. But it's this conflation. It's really hard to tell sometimes whether or not these stories are talking about fairies or the dead, or if fairies are the dead, because sometimes people would be taken by the fairies, and the term "taken" could mean that you were physically taken. No one could find you. It could mean that you had a stroke, which is the original origin of the word "stroke." It's from the fairy stroke.
Really?
Yeah. Or that you were in sort of you were mentally disabled. That could mean that you'd been taken if you were suddenly afflicted with some sort of well, again, that sort of idea of a stroke. You're physically there, but you're mentally somewhere else. Or if you were found dead, it could mean that your dead body was a changeling and you had been taken by the fairies. So this idea of being taken in this non-corporeal way is really important to understanding. I think the whole sort of fairy thing. I'm where did fairies live? They lived underground. Well, where do dead people live? If I can use the word live, they live underground. You'll find a lot of fairies described as gray and sort of having this lifeless complexion. In addition to them, sort of cavorting with the dead. So there's definitely a component that doesn't get talked about a lot between fairies and the dead. But, I compare that to, what Anne Strieber told Whitley at one point after reading a bunch of the letters that she was sent. She said, Whitley, this has something to do with what we call death. And also the way that, an alien abduction and a near-death experience are practically identical in a lot of ways. You have a bright light and these figures that take you up, and then you return oftentimes with powers. People don't really talk about the fact that a lot of people who have NDEs return with, increased sensitivity or clairvoyance or something. Same thing with alien abductees. They experience the exact same thing. So I think that where I'm at right now is that we're all sort of looking at some sort of cosmology of spirits that somehow escort us to the afterlife and intercede in our lives. The idea of the psychopomp that I mentioned earlier, sort of as being a shaman on the spirit side of things. Psychopomps were not only known for escorting souls to the dead, to the realm of the dead, but they're also known for interceding in major life milestones as well. Almost like sort of totem animals and stuff like that. So I think that if you look at when paranormal events tend to happen to people, they're at major milestones. They're at major turning points in people's lives, times of liminality. So I think that this is, for me right now, where I'm sitting, this is the most. This idea has the most explicative power of any idea that I've come across so far.
Yeah.
I still don't know if spirit world, because people hear spirit world and they think the narrow Judeo-Christian good evil thing. But
do you think these follow the ley line type thing? Have you ever looked into that to see if things intersect with something like that?
Yeah, I think that there's definitely something to ley lines. I was actually one of the spots that I was at in Ireland. Was the Grange Stone Circle. It's the largest stone circle in Ireland.
Yeah.
And my guide said that it's been rumored to be a convergence of ley lines, and that place feels kind of strange. That's the one place where I had something vaguely anomalous happen to me. But I do think that there's something to ley lines. They don't get talked about nearly as much as they used to. I remember,
it blew up. I think when a lot of it might have been when I noticed it was ancient aliens linking pyramids with
the pyramids and so
the power structure or whatever through ley lines, and that's how information was transferred.
Yeah, if you look at if you look back to the 70s and 80s, Flying Saucer Review and MUFON, these publications were chock full of articles on ley lines. There was even a study. Nobody ever talks about this anymore, and I might be getting it wrong, but there was a study similar to the study of ley lines that somebody was proposing called orthoteny, which was the idea that actually trying to measure anomalous events along these particular ley lines, because it's very easy to draw connections between established churches and megalithic sites, or churches, megalithic sites, crossroads, the places of either power or liminality, of the in between state, that these sort of things are gravitated towards. Yeah, I definitely think that's something to it. And again, nobody's talking about it nowadays, but I think it's really something that's fascinating.
I always thought that was pretty wild. I mean, if there is something to that, I mean,
well, if you look at like the way that UFOs sometimes move at right angles, it definitely suggests
following this. Yeah,
exactly. They're moving along a track. Yeah, I definitely think that there. Well, I definitely think that there is something to the idea that certain spots tend to align in certain ways.
Shit, man. I mean, all the way to Stonehenge. I mean, all that. Yeah,
that's what I was going to ask. Is Stonehenge considered a fairy mound almost, or was that?
It's that blurring, right? So, so no, but.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I found there was, for example, I would compare it to Dunbeg that I was able to visit, which is a stone fort on the Dingle Peninsula.
Dingle.
It looks exactly like Dingle. The Dingle up the Dingle, just hanging off there on the west coast. That looks exactly like other things that are called fairy forts, but it's never really ever called a fairy fort because for whatever reason, people just knew that it was part of. They were more accepting of the idea that it was built by ancient man. Stonehenge is the same way. It's of course some of these sites in Ireland are older than Stonehenge, but it's never really had that sort of fairy connotation. And yet there is this sort of pre-Christian druidic ley line spirit sort of thing, that association that is there, that it might as well be associated with the fairies. I mean, for example, the Grange Stone Fort that I mentioned, 400 years older than Stonehenge. The largest stones brought in from, I believe, a mile away.
Wow.
Some of them weighing, I think 40 tons is the largest one.
What?
Yeah. It's not, it's been archaeologically examined. There was an outer earthen ring that predates the stone ring. It's 150 feet across, so it's massive. Stones, the largest one is 13 feet tall.
How did they move those? Any theories on that? Or
they just got a bunch of logs and they rolled them and they took the log from the back and put the log. Yeah, of course, That's the way that these things. Yeah, that's the traditional explanation, which I think leaves something to be desired. Because if you've ever if you can spend 10 minutes in the Irish countryside and be like, ain't nobody rolling logs over shit.
Yeah, exactly.
It's hilly and rocky and it's but it's a site of archaeological interest. And yet, so it's very comparable to Stonehenge because Stonehenge is a stone circle as well, a megalithic stone circle. And yet, the stone circle in Ireland, the Grange Stone Circle, has a legend where there was a man who wanted to learn how to play the harp, and he slept overnight in the stone circle, and he woke up in the morning and said that the fairies had taught him how to play the harp, which is shades of Robert Johnson, staying at the crossroads trying to learn the guitar. But it's this association that you get with the fairies and with the pre-Christian peoples that sort of blend. So is Stonehenge associated with fairy lore? I'm sure you can find something that was been attributed to, what was that, Stonehenge? And because it's I'm not even sure what part of England Stonehenge is in. I should know this. But whatever the local fairy lore is, I'm sure that you could find some sort of association of between that and fairies at some point in the past. Wiltshire. So is Wiltshire? Where are you, Wiltshire? So Wiltshire is is it considered Wales? No. Is it considered Cornwall? No. Anyway. Whatever sort of local indigenous fairy lore you have in the area, I'm sure you can find somebody who claims that the fairies hang out at Stonehenge.
Right.
Just because there's that blending of the two. That was a long-winded answer. Sorry.
No, I mean, I just like the connection to the ley line thing again. How, and if everything is some sort of frequency based, like sound. So if these entities, fairy lore, and UFO, whatever, orbs I think orbs are like I said, I'm the same way with I'm like 99% nuts. Whatever's flying around, we made it for sure. And then there's like that 1%, the unexplained, which are these orbs. So if these things are on, this frequency thing, like, and if this ley line, and it goes back to like that whole sacred geometry type situation where, you can take sound vibrations, create these patterns. Imagine that mapped over the entire planet, basically. There's your power grid or whatever.
You raise a really good point, though, because I think that the orbs are one of those things that it's a pan-paranormal thing.
Right.
Sarai has mentioned this before, but you see an orb in the sky, and it's a UFO. You see an orb in a haunted house, and it's a ghost.
Yep.
But people don't like to. The cryptozoologists don't like to talk about the fact that a lot of the sites that are known for Sasquatch sightings have orbs associated.
And the orbs, right? Yeah.
It's only started to really come out and really get talked about in the past couple of years. So I do think that there's some sort of pan-paranormal explanation, an idea that I've toyed with. So if you ever have, do either of you play video games at all?
Oh yeah,
yeah, yep.
So especially like computer games, if there's ever a texture missing, you might wind up with like a pink wall or something, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Because it's like this is the placeholder. There's supposed to be a texture here, but we have no texture. And I've sort of wondered if maybe like the pineal gland, which apparently does not play as large a role in the generation of DMT as the New Age community would like to think, but I still think this is interesting nonetheless. The pineal gland is similar to it's in the same place that cultures used to call your third eye. It reacts to light, right? So sometimes I've wondered if these orbs aren't us seeing the phenomena in its truest form.
There you go.
Maybe,
that interacts with us and releases some sort of endogenous DMT, and then depending on the context, if we're in a field we see a land flying saucer, if we're in the woods we see Sasquatch, and if we're in a house we see a Civil War soldier. Sometimes I wondered if the orb isn't like the missing texture in the video game. It's like there should be
you ever go and like stare at something and you see those floaters in your vision,
Yeah.
There's like you don't think you have any until you stare at the sky. And
and all of a sudden they're everywhere. Yeah.
How do I see
UFOs everywhere, man?
Yeah, exactly. Oh man. Well, at least we're not talking about the rods. You remember the
whole rod thing.
The rods. Craze.
Shit.
Well, yeah. So yeah, we're about at 2 hours almost. You want to wrap this thing up?
Yeah,
you got a nice 12-hour day ahead of you tomorrow, Josh. I want to keep you up all night.
Yeah.
Where can people find you? What do you want to plug? Plug everything you got.
Plug all the holes.
Yes.
You can find me at joshuacutchin.com, where I hope to be doing some more blogging soon. I tend to not be super enthusiastic about short form writing for whatever reason. Like if I'm going to
you're on a podcast every other week anyway, so you don't even need to write anything.
What do you listen to, dude? Like on your own? Like, do you have are you just listening to music when you're not messing around? Like,
it depends. Like, I do music so much that most of the time I don't listen to music.
Okay, then.
People ask me about how I end up writing my books and finding so many varied sources, but a lot of it comes from listening to podcasts. I listened to Where Did the Road Go before I was ever on an episode. I listened to them for about a year. Mysterious Universe. There's some seasons. There's some shows that I do sort of on an a la carte basis, simply because my my iPod gets so full. I've got to throw some love to Grillian Report and all of America and Grimerica. I am religious about Radio Misterioso.
Which Greg needs to release an episode. He's been slacking lately.
No, he just released one. He released a podcast pop-up today. Yeah.
Oh, today? I gotta check my phone.
Yeah,
it's been like 2 weeks.
I'm really enjoying Project Archivist for some extra levity. I don't have my.
Yeah, I know.
Right. It's basically all the same ones we listen to too.
I asked that just because.
Conspiranormal. I sometimes listen to Anything Ghost. I listen to Sasquatch Chronicles.
Ooh. I don't know that one.
It's a good one. The fun thing about Sasquatch Chronicles is that like I always like to listen because ostensibly it's all about Sasquatch, but if you listen to what they talk about, it's like, well, I was in a boulder field. I'm like, okay, well that's a fairy thing, and I heard a baby crying, which is like a thing that you hear all across paranormal stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it sounded, and then I heard another one that sounded like an owl. Well, there's the whole owl thing.
Mike Clelland, yep.
And then I saw an orb, and it's like, this is supposedly about Sasquatch. The show used to have like a really like, tracks and turds approach to Bigfoot. And
tracks and turds, you coined that term. I love it.
No, I didn't. I first heard it from Aaron David, who said that he heard it from
Oh yeah, that's right.
But I love that. But anyway, the host has really opened up to some alternative ideas. But it was really interesting, especially in the first couple of years, to be like, you guys are talking about some stuff that's a lot more esoteric than you think. Sasquatch Chronicles, Charm the Water, Astonishing Legends.
You ever come across Occulture yet with Ryan Peverly?
Yeah, check out Occulture. It's good.
I've checked out a couple of episodes from time to time, depending on his guest. He's one of those
Rune Soup with all the Gordon White drops you've been having.
My biggest problem with Rune Soup is that I always find Gordon more interesting than his guests.
Yes.
Well, that's like the reason we started this show, dude. We met
in the Grimerica chat rooms.
Nice. And it all formed out of that. And now we just wanted to talk to cool people, and I was like, well, let's try to get people that do the shows that interview people.
You and Red. I always said you and Red need to make your own podcast, Burritos and Brass.
I've always thought Burritos and Brass. I love it. I like that better than my idea. I had an idea doing Faywatch.
Okay. Yeah, that's nice.
But man, I know how much of an effort it is that podcasters like yourselves put into it, and I can't.
It's not that hard. Just don't edit and don't take it seriously, and it's real easy.
Well, maybe I should do that then.
Yeah.
Expanded perspectives. I'm still going, guys. Expanded perspectives. Anything ghost from time to time. Oh God, there's somebody I'm not listing, and I'm going to be mortified.
You listen to Higher Side?
Higher Side.
I do listen to Higher Side. I do Higher Side a la carte.
Yeah, you were on the Higher Side chats not too long ago. Yeah, that was a good show.
Yeah, probably about less than a year ago, I'd say.
Yeah, I have no concept of time. If it was within a year, it was not too long ago.
Oh, guys, there's something that I love that I'm forgetting because I don't have my damn iPod on me here.
We got this show out of that. Actually, the dude lives by me, and he lives in Columbus, Ohio. I live in Cleveland.
Oh, Our Big Dumb Mouth.
Yeah, OBDM, dude.
That's a good one.
That's a great show.
Nice.
It's a comedic, news-driven, occult, like all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and like I like to go to podcasts too that aren't about this stuff too, because it's so saturated. So Joe Rogan.
No Agenda. You listen to that at all?
I haven't listened to No Agenda.
Yeah. That's more politics.
There's one podcast that's called How Did This Get Made? That's about like awful films.
Sure. Oh,
yeah, I never watched that.
And then there's one that's called there's one that's about like just sort of a film critic podcast of evaluating classic movies called The Canon. So yeah, a little bit of the cinephile.
Check out the mad scientist, Chris Cogswell. He's a scientist guy, but he takes these theories. Yeah, it's weird because he has the DR,
He's got the DR,
but he's into all of it, and he just kind of has a different take on things, and it's good to listen to. Man, he does a good job of it. He's respectful,
right?
Yeah, Chris Cogswell.
Chris Cogswell. Okay.
Yeah, he's a cool dude, man, for sure. We've had him on. That's what I was saying. I keep finding cool people, and I hit them up, and we ask them, and they sure enough. I was surprised at how many people
are just willing to come on.
Yeah, willing to come on, and we're gung ho about it, and it turns out to be such a blast, man. Like,
man, honestly, like I think maybe it's a because I am sort of, I don't talk about this hardly ever at all, but I'm a right leaning kind of guy, which can make it hard to be a musician,
right?
Classical or otherwise, but I have found. and I think it comes with the territory of people who are willing to. I think it comes with the territory of people who are willing to listen to others' experiences. I think that's part of the reason that I found this. But I have found that people involved in the esoteric subjects are so much more tolerant of other people's views.
Yep.
For the most part, and just in terms of being just general nice people, than like a lot of my colleagues are. In the music world, so it's been really refreshing.
Yeah, because who are we to judge? We're talking about batshit crazy stuff anyway.
Exactly. Well, that's my thing. Like it's in the new book, I'll have a section that's talking about how nobody wants to talk about how there are similarities between fairies and Sasquatch, but we all live in glass houses.
Don't throw rocks.
Yep. Yeah, the cryptozoologist laughs at the ufologist and vice versa. But it's we're all on the fringes here. So,
well, right on. When's that new book expected to be released, Josh?
That's a great question.
All right.
It's
you have a publisher? Who's your publisher?
Anomalous Books with Patrick Weege.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Same as the last two. I have a good relationship with Patrick. I just need to. I need to get in touch with. I've been in touch with him, but I need to get it into his hands. Right now, it's sort of in the editing stage. Right. But it'll be released. It's scheduled for 2018. I just don't know when in 2018. So it might literally be a year from now. And I'm like, it's coming out next week, guys.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's different. I tried to zig when everybody thought I'd zag because it was like taste, smell. He's going to do sound next, isn't he? And I'm like, let me just do something that's completely different.
Dude, I remember the day you made that tweet saying, "What should I do? Fairies or changelings or something?"
Really nice. Yeah. Well, this one's taking a lot out of me because it's a book with some dark shit in it. Like
a lot of info
talking about stolen fetuses in Thai black magic and like.
Yeah, that gets intense.
There's some not dark stuff in it too, but like there's some darkness in there that made it kind of hard to get through. Talking about trying to drive out changelings by cooking babies on shovels over fires and shit. Like, yeah.
That's nasty.
But this is going to be your one-stop shop for finding out about changelings and for finding out about fairy abduction in general, but especially fairy child abduction and the risks and the things that people used to do to prevent it, and also how those are paralleled again. Because there's the first half of the book is on fairy lore, the middle section is on worldwide fairy lore, the second half of the book's on UFOs, and then there's an epilogue that talks about Bigfoot, missing 411, and sort of wraps everything up.
We have to talk about that next time, dude. I want to talk to you about 411. That's
we'll go deep.
Topic.
Oh, be glad to.
I love that shit.
Well, right on.
I feel bad for them people, but it's very intriguing.
Yeah. Well, I think it's one of the most it's one of the most interesting things going on in Forteana today. Mm-hmm. So you can find out all about it. To circle back around, you can find out when my book is coming out.
That's right.
On joshuacutchin.com. Where I'm trying to get better about the blog, but you can also find all my interviews are linked there if you really want to be a glutton for punishment and listen to me for a couple of weeks straight. And I'm a regular on Where Did the Road Go on the roundtables that they have there. And I just put a show up on my Ireland trip, and Patreons will be getting a video of my Ireland trip as well.
Very cool.
Oh, did you do bring around a GoPro with you or anything? Something or
GoPro?
No, I just use my my
phone.
Yeah, exactly. But I actually jumped off the iMovie bandwagon and got a third party software editor that was 1,000 times more intuitive.
Oh, nice.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I just put it together. It's a little bit over. It's almost 25 minutes long, so it's a nice long video
presentation.
Nice.
Yeah. Basically, it's basically me narrating stuff to give people context for these, these
I like it. Yeah.
fairy mounds and stuff.
That's cool, man. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Excellent.
All right, Josh. Well, thank you very much for coming on, man.
All right.
Gonna have to come back again.
Let me throw that link in chat for you guys because Soraya hasn't sent it out to the Patreons yet, but there it is.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Let me know what you think.
Sweet. Thanks.
Let me know what you think when you get a spare 25 minutes or so.
Oh yeah, I'll probably watch it tomorrow or tonight.
Nice.
Cool. Well, thanks, Josh.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, guys.
Yeah, been a good time.
Sorry if I dominated the conversation.
No, that's what I was hoping for. You just go nuts.
But
had a good time, man. This was fun for
oh,
sure.
a pleasure.
It was nice
Pleasure.
meeting you, man.
Anytime, guys. Seriously, anytime.
Sweet.
All right.
All right, Josh.
Have a good night.
You have a good night too. All right, bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
These lyrics were never, ever, ever, ever meant for this song. Can you observe my existence in the way that I make debris swirl in the streets? What is it that inspires us to go left instead of right at that fork in the road? Your gold, your possessions exponentially decrease in value when you resume the fetal position. Resume the fetal position. Sucking on your thumb. You become jaded with the power of your time and mind. The power of your time and mind. You become jaded with the power of your time and mind. The power of your time and mind. Gonna catch a Greyhound bus down to Tennessee to go see the king. Get these questions answered while my heart is still thumping.